Hello, and welcome to Plugging Along, a stream dedicated to LOTRO plugins. And today, a little bit of Harvest Festival. Last time on Plugging Along, we started creating a new window that displays the next needed anthem in the priority list that we established previously. Today, we're going to review some changes I made after the stream, just sorting some issues out, and then try to finish our initial logic that'll change the shown anthem as the state of the game changes. As always, feel free to jump into chat with your thoughts and questions. And in the meantime, let's go ahead and move some stuff around. Okay, cool. Here we are above the Haunted Burrow. I have not yet talked to Rosa Hornblower over here, so we're going to go ahead and pick up our wrapper quest for the day. Cool, let's get that. Now I mentioned I have a bit of a speed run for the Haunted Burrow, and I have some optimizations. And last week I had some ideas. I'm going to actually move this plugin window out of here, make it a little bit more easy to see what's going on. So last week I had some thoughts on ways to sort of optimize which traps you trigger. I have experimented a little bit more, so we're gonna get into that. So I'll start a timer here just for fun. And then pick up a stroll through. All right. Now, this is just a minstrel, so we don't have any movement buffs like a hunter or Bjorning might have. So we're just going to run through at normal speed. All right, so if you hold off on triggering this shadow trap until after you get the trophy, it makes it much easier to not get hit by the bats here in the attic, but also avoid the spiders in the cobwebbed wing. And I was previously saying it didn't seem to be possible. Well, it's not possible if you use all of that time to pick up the trophy in the attic. But I feel like the cats have found the boxes. But if you wait until after you pick up that item, you don't have to get tripped by the spiders or the bats, and they're both annoying to get tripped by, so that's ideal. The creeping wing doesn't have any traps in the main areas that you walk through here. And then we just need the one in the basement. So we're going to go through that exact same route again for the fast version of this, the race. And we'll get to see that again. Okay. We're out, we'll turn it in, get the next one, and do it all over again. So, it is possible to skip bats and spiders even if you get the trophy first, but it requires really almost split-second timing. It feels like you don't have a lot to play with. But if you're willing to just circle back, clip the shadow trap, doesn't slow you down for too long, and you don't have the slow effect like you do with the spiders. Very much worth it to avoid bats and spiders. My goodness.
She jumped into the box on the box.
Yeah, jumping into the box on the box will make lots of noise apparently. Okay. So back in the creeping wing, the main path here, no traps to optimize, nothing to worry about there. And in the basement, there's just not a lot going on here. The main trap that I haven't figured out how to avoid in the basement is when you're picking up the monocle, when you're recovering the lost goods. And then you always seem to fall over. I'm not sure what to do about that. That's okay. So we're out of the basement, running back to the exit. Because of all the stuff in the basement, though, we do seem to not trigger the shadow trap in the hallway here. Awesome. And we are out. Okay. So, next one, I just go for the next hobbit in order here. Closest one to the door, as it were. So we're going to go ahead and retrieve those lost belongings. I do like to pick up the one outside the attic here on my way in, because if I forget it, I have another chance to get it on my way out. And then I have to force myself to not race away from the item as soon as I'm done interacting with it. I have to interact with the quest dialogue as well. Clip that shadow on the way out so that we can bypass the bats here. And we can bypass the spiders coming on into the cobwebbed wing. Now, retrieving the creeping wing. Retrieving the wing here will trigger a spider animation, but this spider animation doesn't come with a slowing effect and seems to override the one that you would get with a slowing effect. So that's very handy. And then, of course, nothing in the creeping wing to trigger in this main path. Almost ran away without hitting continue. Nah. Finally, we are in the basement. The monocle here, like I said, I can't reach this monocle without being in this disgusting puddle, and I always fall over as a consequence of getting it. So it seems to be a mandatory emote. And I've got forced emotes turned off from other players, but of course, falling over because of the stinking puddle is just mandatory, as far as I can tell. So if anyone knows how to bypass that falling over animation, that'd be great, because it slows me down like 5 seconds. Okay, so we're out. We're going to turn in those lost belongings to Holdfast here and move on to the alternate route with the potions. Now, you can read these things, of course, but it really slows you down. If you happen to just remember that you're going middle, middle, left, middle, it's much faster. Once you've drunken the potion, you do have this aura of invulnerability, which is really great. The one thing to watch out in the cobweb wing is if you get about to the middle point on that table, you will trigger the spider animation. You want to drink this blue bottle first so that you are immune to the spider animation all throughout here, because that will both knock you down and then slow you down once you're back up. It's a big time sink. In here we just want the left. That's the only one that's not middle. And now that we have that immunity, it doesn't matter that there are shadow things that would grasp us here. We can run right through them. All right, finally back to middle with the blue bottle. And out. Now, basement doesn't have an alternate path like the other three do. We're just going to go straight to the normal exit with our little invincibility thing and out. Do watch out. Sometimes people accidentally open the door. Sometimes people intentionally open that first door. And if you bump it, you just start back over at the entrance. So you don't want to give it a wide berth. Okay. Got those belongings. Now we're going to go find some scared hobbits. And in. Now this is the same route as normal. We're going to bypass the creeping wing, but the other three, basement, attic, and cobweb wing, each have a hobbit, and then there's 3 on the ground floor here. All right. Now this one is a bit of a tricky timing, but if you can clip the shadow trap, let's see, clip that, and then spend almost no time talking with that hobbit, then you can still be running fast enough to avoid bats and spiders. Oh, good point. Agartha does mention hobbits do get a movement buff from the Call of the Second Age. I'm trying to do as kind of quote-unquote pure of a run as I can here. So, you know, if you're a class that just or just don't use speed buffs, this is kind of the minimum speed that you can get here. Straight on through the creeping wing. Don't search for a hobbit down here. Ellie in chat says, hello. Hello! We are finding scared hobbits on a speed run through the Haunted Burrow before I get into some plugin development. I actually really enjoy the Haunted Burrow. It appeals to me with all its twists and turns. So I like doing a little bit of a break from plugin development. On previous weeks, it was actually also progressing my wrapper, but I believe here on Affidel, I've completed all of the necessary. I've gone out on instinct and just run out of the Haunted Burrow. No worries. There are 3 more hobbits here on the ground floor, though, so we're just going to head on back as if we had just come out of the basement. So, coming out of the basement, we did want to go straight forward along here to the west wing, interacting with this hobbit here, and keep going. Now that we have 4 of them, the last 2 are on the way out. We've got 1 here in this little alcove. Hello, scared hobbit. And then you can reach the last one through the wall here, so don't walk into that alcove. A little cul-de-sac. Just do it on your way out. Cool. Okay. So, that's done. Next 3 are the 3 solo wing experiences. First one we're going to start is the attic, and we're going to activate that chain. And again, if you can avoid activating the shadow trap until after or while you are dealing with the menace in the attic, you're gonna be able to avoid those bats. It's great. Now this one is subject to other people. We can see someone else is interacting. We're going to wait for this hobbit to run away and basically despawn. It has to despawn before you can resummon. We can see I did it just a little bit too early there. So the hobbit hadn't despawned, so it can't respawn. So just wait. If you have it selected, wait until your selection is gone. All right. Done. Shadow, bypass the bats, and out. And avoid running straight into the cobwebbed wing. I do that all the time, and it's just a huge time sink to get back out. So if you're on the solo quest, just try to remember not to do that. It's very sad. All right, so hello, bear. So next thing, just going in order, they are in the alphabetic order that they're showed. They're also maps the conceptual order that you run through here. So that's great. The default would go down the right wing here, but you want to come down the left wing because you want to trip this shadow trap right here, and that lets you bypass the spider trap at the beginning of the cobweb wing. Otherwise, that is, I closed it. Open. Okay, so hopefully we still have that immunity. We want to avoid the spider trap all throughout here. There we go. We can see we're right behind this person. Maybe I should have done the other wing. Oh well. That's going to do bad things for my timing. They're level 10 here. I'm just going to help them out. Okay, go away. Okay, we can see... Oh, I accidentally misclicked. But we're going to go ahead and click on this jar of honey and get this hobbit out. Great. We're the furthest away we can get from the main door, so we're going to go ahead and use our 30-minute cooldown exit from the Haunted Burrow here, try to get ahead of this student of the past here. That's going to take us right to the front, and we're just going to go turn in swap quests. Okay. Now we can use the secondary entrance to the creeping wing here over on the right. It's not the first, but the second portal, and bypass having to run through the other wings to get here. And we'll just run around to the right corner here, grab that candle, start the interaction. Oh no, something is coming. So if you're high enough level, as soon as you strike the first time, you can just run. You do not have to wait for that hobbit to despawn. And this time we are going to have to also run through the basement to get out. Yeah, but don't stick around for that hobbit to disappear. You get credit as soon as you defeat that hobbit, and if you're high enough level, that means as soon as you activate your first skill, go. All right. Now, this will be quest number 8 if you've already unlocked the In-League and Ale Association, which I highly recommend you do. The introductions don't take very long, they count as quests, and if you're level 51 or higher also, and have done the Moria introduction, they also give you that legendary item experience for your legendary item reward track. Once you've got those unlocked, we can come and scare hobbits for this quest. So it's the same thing, you're finding those 6 hobbits, and instead of comforting them or guiding them out, you are just scaring them. You're playing a trick on them. So again, nick that shadow trap right here, get that bucket of tricks, and try to do this as optimally as you can, because you don't want to waste any time in order to bypass that spider trap in the cobweb wing. And that's how you avoid bats and cobwebs. And you gotta be fast, so we're just gonna nick the corner here to do it through the wall, and then out again. Once you're over here, you're safe enough, and we can just continue on. Dash through the creeping wing. Alright, in the basement, we want to avoid alcoves where possible. They're wastes of time, so do it through the wall here instead. And out. Okay, remember to actually go into the west wing, pick up hobbit number 4. This trick is too far away from the wall to do it through the wall, I'm afraid. The hobbit is not, so if you're comfortable with your F10 key to select NPCs, you can do that hobbit through the wall and save yourself a second. Alright, and of course the final trick is also doable through the wall, and so you should avoid that alcove, and we're out. Okay, last quest after we turn this one in is to grab the wine. I like doing that one last because it does put a 5-minute drunk effect on your character. I've got post-processing turned off during the festival. Normally it's on because it's pretty. But I don't like that drunk effect, the blurry part. And so the camera shifting back and forth, bad enough. So we're going to do that last, so we're not running through 9 other quests in the burrow with this drunk effect that we get from picking up the wine. Alright, once you got it, you take off. Nick this shadow. Nope, we're still under the cooldown. Excellent. Alright, make sure you walk close enough that the delivery counts before you start interacting with her. And back to Rosa. Alright, So that's my timer, and we can see, even with some of the delays from other players, that was still only 13 minutes to go through all 10 of those quests. Not bad, I think. I feel like that's actually a little bit faster than last time, and not getting hit by bats or spiders each time you transition from the attic through the cobwebbed wing. Super important to getting that time as fast as you can. I'm sure there's some people who can do it in a sub 13-minute times, but I feel like that was a pretty good time, especially with other people doing the quests for Polo over here. Awesome. Well, that's my speed run of the Haunted Burrow. That's how I managed to run through on multiple characters, and you can basically do four characters in an hour if that's what you're looking to do. I think because we're going to be doing anthems today, we're going to need to get to some place where we can be in combat. So I'm going to go ahead and travel to a kinship member's house, and then go make use of a training dummy. Oh, reputation from the inmate, right, okay. Alright, well, yes, Edgar Arthur, thanks for popping in there. Most classes, it feels like, have some sort of a sprint or a movement buff of some sort. So Minstrels do have a Call of the Second Age, which has this plus 10% run speed for your fellowship within 5 meters for 10 seconds. That's not bad. It's certainly worth using. Not the farming, the training. Okay, when I am playing a Bjorning, I am constantly activating Wanderlust, and until I get, right before I get to the item I need to interact with, then I'll go back to humanoid form, and as soon as I'm done interacting with it, back to Wanderlust for the next one. The cooldown, the internal cooldown on those skills is fast enough that you can just go bip, 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 bip. It's great. Same thing with a hunter. I'll have my wayfinding, I think it is, on, just to get whatever boost I have. And if you have the trait set for it, or a spare trait tree, go ahead and do the one that increases the speed from your wayfinding as a hunter. I forget what that is, probably blue. They're all about movement. And so you can boost yourself up to, I don't know, 40% or something ridiculous. Run into walls all the time. I run into so many walls with my Bjorning, and I'm still doing it faster than my Minstrel. Just like a cat in this house with laminate floors, just slam into those walls as you're making those corners. But it doesn't matter because you're still just making up so much time. Okay, so we're done with the festival part of things. Yay, festival. We're going to go on to... let's go ahead and get rid of that stopwatch. We're going to go ahead and go on to plugin development. That's the normal bread and butter for plugging along here, but since I'm tromping on a little bit of Heart of a Hobbit's stream time here, I figured let's revisit the Haunted Burrow, but fast. Little Redhead likes reading quest text and interacting with hobbits, and I'm all zoom, zoom, zoom. It's okay. Okay, so where did we leave off last time? We're going to go ahead and pop open our source control program. In this case, we're using fork from fork.dev. And we can see timestamps on our snapshots, on our commits. And in this case, after we were done last time, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, I went ahead and hunted down anthem names for each of the languages. Switching back and forth between English, French, and German clients cause two problems, especially when you're streaming. One, it just takes a while. You have to completely exit the game and then use the launcher to switch languages. Now, if you want to do this, and you can do this just for fun, or if you are bilingual or trilingual, knock yourself out, you can use the button here in the upper right-hand corner of the launcher. It will have a 2-letter code that goes with your language, so EN, or DE or FR for English, German, or French. You can just click on that, select a different one. The launcher closes itself and relaunches, and then once it's done checking for updates and all that, you can then come on into the game. And so it takes a little bit of an effort to switch clients. The other thing you can do is just have 3 different clients running at the same time, which is nice if you're checking back and forth between different things. It's a little hard to stream like that. So that you change at the client, so you have to completely exit out of the game to get into German or French. But if you know German or French, or just like seeing the game translated, all the buttons are in the same place, so you can still get in and out of the game. It's fun to duck in there. So we have the German anthem skill names, the French anthem skill names, and I think we had done this part in stream, the English skill names, and also some extra comments for effect names versus skill names. Cool. I went ahead and hunted down the icons for the skills, I think. So we have the icon skills and also the skill IDs for those anthems. And we need those in order to be able to make a shortcut to that skill. We need to know what this hex value is. And as we saw in the stream last time, you have to have that hex value in a string because you're passing a string to the shortcut, which sometimes contains a hex number like this. And then there were some to-do file updates, and cool. That's kind of where we're at. And then I poked around at previewing some stuff, and we can see a stash there, previewing some of the stuff we're going to work on today. So let's go ahead and push out those old changes. Get the, off of my computer. And come on in to Visual Studio Code. It's a free program. You can download it from something. Just search for Visual Studio Code on your favorite search engine. And we're using the extension by a community member, Lunarwater, called LOTRO API. This gives IntelliSense to your plugin development. It's very handy. Okay, so let's go ahead and close some of these windows. Okay, so what do we have? We want a UI that shows the next anthem in our priority queue. Let's go ahead and start by launching open the plugin manager and then loading MistrelBuff II. Okay, it loads on up. We're going to move this around and let's go ahead and make it a little bit bigger so we can easily see that on the stream. Okay, so in order to have a clean working directory, I did remove some of the stuff we did last time to add the shortcut in. So let me find my notes on that and put it in real fast. Great. All right, my notes were apparently incomplete. Invalid shortcut for the quick slot. Okay, anthem. Great. Yes. Okay. So, other thing I wanted to come on into is in our settings file, we have skill IDs. And one of the things I wanted to do was to change this. These were kind of poorly named when we first started this. We can see this in the strings. Sorry, in the minstrel effect string file. These were effect names. And one of the things I was doing last week was conflating the name of the effect from an anthem and the name of the anthem that gives the effect. And these are oftentimes not the same. And so we can see the effect name from Lesser Anthem 1 Resonance is Anthem 1 Resonance. They dropped the lesser from the effect name. And Greater Anthem 1 Compassion, and so on. And so in the skills, we were using the name of the effect. So let's go ahead and do that here. Shortcut. Yep, and that should be good. Okay, so this is back where we were. We were able to produce a shortcut, and that shortcut is an anthem. We're good. But I want to go ahead and do some of that cleanup now before we get started. So the first thing is, in our settings file, let's go ahead and fix this skill ID. What I would like to do is map the skill ID to the anthem name, not the effect name. And so for that, in fact, we can go ahead and have two windows side by side here. We want the to use these. Where did I put them? Haha! The Anthem skill names instead of the Anthem effect names, and that's pretty easy to do. We're just going to come on in here and copy and paste those on over, and we can see they're pretty similar. They just got skill at the end. Could also just be copy and pasting the word skill here. Oh, I see some chat. Kel says, after playing the game for 13 years, I just installed a plugin for the first time. Woohoo! Yes, as Little Redhead says, what was it that you installed? And hopefully you have seen, in fact, let me put it into the chat here. Hopefully you have seen the LOTRO plugin compendium, which is a third-party downloadable program that can tell you which of your plugins don't match the version of the ones over on LOTROinterface.com, but you can also install new plugins using this. It's super simple. Aha! You wanted LOTROpad. Yeah, LOTROpad is great. So for instance, I can come in here, I can click LOTROpad, and I can go ahead and say add, and it's downloaded, installed, it's already done. It takes almost no time, even for the large plugins. So highly recommended. If you've done it while your game is running, remember to hit this little green arrow to refresh the list, and then anything you've installed or removed will show up in the list. Now we have LOTROpad. Awesome. LOTROpad's great. Okay, so we made this change to skill IDs. What are we indexing it by? So we do want to find any place that's indexing it and go ahead and update. So we're not using an effect name, we're using a skill name. And that was what my saved code was doing. So we're going to go ahead and unload. Clicked on the wrong one. We're going to reload MistrelBuff. Oh, we are going to have an error message. Let's get this plugins tab on out. Invalid shortcut. Awesome. Skill IDs. I forgot to save the settings file. That will cause a mismatch, and then we're good. Okay. I think while we're at it, we have these icon skills. Skill icon lookup table. We have this lookup table. Just checking my notes here. Okay, so we have this lookup table that we have for a given effect. What's the icon? And we probably want the same thing. That's probably a mapping between skills. So we can see skill icon set background, skill icons. This should be the name of a skill, not the name of an effect. So same thing. We just want to bring those skill names on over. Hearing cats in boxes again? Maybe. Okay. And same thing, we want to come in here, and we've got the localized anthem name. Anthems for priority selection. Let's come on in and find that. Cool. Anthems for priority selection then. Let's see. These anthems for priority selection, again, we're talking the skills of them. And so here's where we're going to break that conflation. In fact, we can see we're just pasting the word skill at the end. What I want to do is eventually rename the other ones to be effect, and it'll be a lot more obvious if we're mix and matching the effect and anthem. So anthems for priority selection, used anywhere else? No. Okay. So anthems for priority selection, we're passing in an index, and we're getting out a anthem skill name. It would be very nice of us to maybe come back and clean that up to say anthem skill name instead of anthem effect name. So come in here. In general, name variables with effect or skill when talking about anthems. Cool. A little note to my future self, so we can come back in to that later. Okay, let's resize this window a little bit. And you know what? let's move this MistrelBuff window over to the right so it's a little bit more easy to see while this is up. Awesome. Okay, so we just checking my notes here. Very good. I guess one of my notes here is that because of the stance that I'm in, my default stance here will be, or my default anthem to use is the Lesser Dissonance skill. So we'll go ahead and use that. All right, so unload, reload, great. That one I actually have access to if I were in combat and had at least one ballad active. Okay, anything else interesting to do? Yes, there is one more thing. And so what's going to happen is we are going to be looking at effects to figure out which anthems are active. So there's a funny thing in chat going on. So there is a plugin called LOTRO Compendium, which is different from the LOTRO plugin compendium. So there is the LOTRO Compendium, which is a plugin, and there's the LOTRO plugin compendium, which is a program. And so you do want to make sure you get the right thing. So there's the LOTRO plugin compendium here. This is the one which can manage your plugins for you. That's a desktop application, and there's a version for Mac Linux, and there's one for Windows. That's the LOTRO plugin compendium. And then there's the LOTRO compendium, which is a plugin which gives you all sorts of in-game information about quests and deeds and crafting and whatnot. It's very thorough, and you just have ways to filter by all sorts of different things. It's great. So if you want a list of available quests or deeds or whatnot in the game, you're looking for the plugin the LOTRO Compendium, which is a plugin. And if you're looking to manage your plugins, you're looking for the LOTRO plugin compendium. It's great. We were just talking about this over on the one of the development discords about, are those names at all confusing? And I don't think so. No, I'm just kidding. They're definitely confusing, but they've also been around for a decade, so what are you going to do? Okay, so in the files, we are going to care about the anthem effect names for all of the anthems in order to know which ones are active. Because if we already have the Lesser Anthem 1 Resonance anthem effect, Anthem 1 Resonance, if that's already present, then we don't want to consider that one for, oh, you should do this one right now. It's already done. It's fine. So what we want instead of just the base anthems 1, 2, and 3 effects is we also want the combination effect. Because if we have this combination effect, Anthem 1, Resonance, and Compassion, then kind of by definition, we have both Resonance and Compassion active. And so we do want to go ahead and have that as a saved variable name. So Anthem 1, Lesser, and Greater, right? Just something like that. And we can do the same thing. And we can make use of that new variable down here so we're not repeating ourselves. Okay, so we'll do the same thing. We'll copy out Anthem 2. Anthem 2, Lesser, and Greater. And again, I want to come back and add effect to the name, but basically right now, if it has skill in the name, it's the name of the skill. If it has nothing, then it's the name of the effect. And we'll fix that later. Okay, that's Anthem 2. And then we have Anthem 3, Lesser and Greater, equals, and we're going to copy paste that name of the effect there, the combined effect, and then copy in that variable. And ideally, we would just do the same changes on German and French. I'll probably do that off stream, or at the very end if we have lots of extra time and I need to fill it with something. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so we have the names of these ready. Did I save that? Okay. Yes. Okay. Oh, I put them in the wrong place though. It's like, why are my notes disagreeing? Okay. Anthem 2 and Anthem 3. Because again, those are effects. It's come to haunt me. Okay. So, yeah, that's the kind of change we would make for Dutch and German as well.
French.
German and French. Ah, man, can you imagine how great it would be if this was localized to Dutch? I mean, you would need some rich benefactor to come in and fund it, because there's no reason for it, but I think it'd be great. Okay. In fact, I've got some notes over here of what that would look like. I think I'll just substitute them in. Okay, so that would look like in the German. Because those, as of right now, have not been localized in the same way that you would expect. Right now, the combination ones are just Anthem 1, Resonance and Compassion. It doesn't have the German versions of Resonance and one would assume Compassion in that name. And same thing for the French. Right now, they have French names for the base Anthem effects, but not that new combined Anthem effect. That might be coming in the near future, and I'll have to change this to take that into account. It wouldn't surprise me if that was an Update 34 thing, because they're going to change so many things in a couple of weeks at this point. What are we talking about? A month? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. So in 6 weeks, they're changing so much things. If you haven't seen it, the Bulwer notes are available on the forum, and they just change one or two things, right? Like just a little bit, just a little bit. Holy moly! There's definitely some stuff on there that we'll talk about for a MistrelBuff plugin. Oh, in fact, if you don't already have it, let me go ahead and put those into chat there. Cool. Okay. So, you know, we've changed a couple of things already. Let's come back into our source control and start taking some snapshots of the changes that we've made. I think that'll be nice to our future self. So, we can go ahead and say added combined Anthem effect name variables. Cool. And that's in the German and the English and the French. Yeah, we can do that as a separate commit. In the settings, we can say indexed several tables by skill name instead of effect name. And that's both of these and this one as well. Okay. Well, what do we have here? Okay. One thing I wanted to check on with our options here. When we added the icon into the options, I noticed this after the fact, it made these, the text shoot off the right side. So we can fix that super easily by coming on into the options window and find, well, we're in the Anthem area, great. And the Anthem priority list box, we just want that to be a little bit bigger, maybe 260. So if we come back in, we can see, oh yes, there's a nice little healthy border on the right side here. I haven't checked to see what this looks like with the German or the French. That might still be not wide enough. In fact, if we come in into these, we can see, yeah, the Anthem skill names are a bit longer. In fact, let's go ahead and let's see, is that the longest one? That is almost long. Let's go ahead and substitute in the longest German name here. And I think the French ones are all that long or shorter. Yeah, they're all shorter than that. So let's substitute in the longest German name and see, is this big enough? And the answer is no, it is not big enough. Also, that M dash that they're using in the Anthem name is an annoyance, as we can see. So let's go ahead and make this bigger. We're going to come on into the option window and let's maybe start with 300 pixels wide. See if, how much excess that gives us. The answer is not quite enough, but we're almost there. So maybe 320. Almost. It is not... Yeah, it just needs a little bit more for a border. So we'll do 330 and call it good. Okay, so now we know this is going to fit each of the 3 languages. And we can add a little comment to our future selves. Note, needs to be this wide for... I'm already second guessing myself. This is necessary for German, but it's a little bit much for, it's a lot much for English. So instead, let's just have a language contextual variable here. And we can actually do it by, let's see, what is this? This is Anthem Priority List Box. So this is options, Anthem Priority List Box, width equals, and in English, we know 260 was fine. Based on the longest Anthem name in this locale. Anthem skill name, always call out if it's a skill or an effect name. Cool, and then we can just copy this in to German. We want it under the skill names. Yep. Great, and we know that's 330. And then we want the same thing in French, but the longest French is this, so we can do the same thing. Come back in, swap it in for the lesser one skill. Unload, reload, and we can see here that it doesn't need to be 330 at all. Let's dial it down to maybe 300. Maybe that's might be a little too little. Nope, that looks good. So we're going to go ahead and do 300 for the French one. Okay, and then we can use this variable, which again is defined in each of the language files here, MistrelBuff language code, and therefore is only going to be defined once for our purposes. And we can use that in the options window. We can actually just say that thing is options and the priority list box width. And now it is just correct for this language. And we can see we're back into the English one. So we're going to want to get that English text back as well. Oh, where are we? That was lesser Anthem 1 resonance in my notes. All right. Excellent. Okay. So, in English, this is the shortest version, and French is going to be a little bit wider, and for German, it'll be a fair amount wider. And that's how we get this to look nice in each of the 3 languages, is don't try to hard code the width of this, just include that in the localization file in some way. Oh, Agatha says, Before the Shadow is in November 8th. You know, I was thinking December 8th, like someone who isn't paying attention very well. Thank you so much, Egg Arthur. Good point. Before the Shadow is going to do all of this confusion in 2 weeks. And December 8th is, of course, Tuesday, the day that Little Redhead and I stream over here on the channel. So It is quite possible we will not be streaming that day, or we'll be streaming at a different time. I'm not sure. But I could imagine a large patch day and also a very heavy server load. So we'll see. I am in chat, has a little heart symbol. Hello and welcome. We are doing plugin development today, and if that's your jam, I hope you enjoy being here with us. Okay, so that was a nice change. I wasn't actually in my notes. I wasn't even thinking about the localization problem. I'm very happy with that. Also, very happy with this hover over. And I don't know if this is a Lunar Water thing or if this is a Visual Studio Code thing or what, but I love the fact that it's showing me the 3 variations on those variables based on just detecting it in code. I love that I can see, oh, it's 260 or 300 or 330. That's great. And we can see the comment that we gave with it also in this box here. So we know why those numbers are the way they are. That's super cool. So kudos to whoever's did that. Maybe it was Lunar Water, maybe not. Okay, so what else do we have as sort of preparatory things? Let's see. I'm gonna clean up my notes here in just a moment. There's so much going on, and I want to not reproduce have too much confusion. Okay, that's good. Great. Oh, one other thing I was thinking of is in our main file. I was just glancing at this the other day, and it kind of bugged me. Is we have a refresh effect display function that used to do so much. It did all the things, and we've hoisted that functionality out and put it into different places. But I didn't clean up the header of this function, where we can see, thanks to the IntelliSense, that there's a couple of variables here that are just no longer used. Ballad effect place. Let's get rid of it. Anthem effect place. Is anthem fixed? We're going to get rid of that as well, and show anthems, don't need it. And that's just going to make this function a little bit easier to understand for anyone, possibly me, coming back in a few months and being like, what's going on here? Why are we declaring a bunch of variables and we're not using them? We don't need them. And that's because when we have these effects, we go ahead and just pass them off to another function, which is passing them off to other functions, and eventually those things get used, but not before they're needed. Great. Okay. So, let us, let's see, what's going on in the main window in my notes? Okay, so we need a way to know which of the anthems that are available to a minstrel are trained. And this is important. Both when we first load the plugin, we need to check which of these are trained. Fortunately, there's only 7 of them to keep track of. We need to know that. And in fact, did we start that in our settings file? Let's pull that up. Not yet. Okay, so we need... wait, did we? No. Okay. We need a way to track if skills are trained or not. So down below these skill IDs, we might and this is not something we're going to save into a file. It's something we need to recheck anytime the plugin is loaded, because the anthems you have access to can change based off of leveling. Oh, in fact, oh no, hang on. No, I guess it's only trait changes. Need to detect if an anthem becomes available due to trait point spend. And also, just in case we fail to detect anthems, we need a button in the options window to rescan trained anthems. Okay, so we want to go ahead and have a place to track right now, do we think the anthem is trained or not? And we're going to want to use the names of those skills. So let me go grab those real fast. And you can use multi-select in Visual Studio Code, which just makes me very happy. And we can go ahead and paste these in here, but we are going to want that to be in a table. So how about something obvious? Is Anthem trained, right? And we're going to define a table here. And we just want to go ahead and track this with a Boolean. I think that's going to be fine. So is trained equals false. We're going to assume none of them are trained to start with, and then prove ourselves wrong as we go through and actually look at these skills. Okay. I wonder if I actually need or want a semicolon at the end there. Oh, why not? We're not doing that, or are we? The rest of these have them. Let's go ahead and end with the one. Okay, so now we have a way to track, is the anthem trained? Awesome. Now we need a place to do it. So when are we going to know about this? When the anthem, when the plugin is first loaded, we are going to want to do this. And anytime our traits change, we're going to want to do this. And so other thing we can take advantage of is that whenever you change your traits, in general, your active stance kind of reactivates. We can see my melody stance there. Let's go ahead and change over to dissonant stance. I'm gonna wait. Game with your requirements. When we're able to change stance, we should see that this dissonant stance should probably refire. Should deactivate and reactivate as part of that process. Okay, let's do that again. And we can see, yes, it had that effect of this cooldown for the dissonant stance is active. Now, last week I mentioned I thought that's overkill because we don't care about every time a stance changes, just when the trait trees change. Except we do care about that because coming with update 34 is this comment for Minstrels. Melody stance increases anthem duration by 15 seconds. Now, I'm not a big user of melody stance. I tend to feel like if I'm doing damage, I should be in dissonant stance. So if I'm doing healing, I should be in resonant stance. And I don't really have a use for melody stance. I don't have a use for you're doing less damage and you're doing less healing. So I haven't made good use of melody stance, and I think that's probably true for a lot of minstrels, which is why I think SSG is tweaking melody stance to be more favorable. So you might step into melody stance to reactivate an anthem, so it gets that extra 15 seconds, but then you kind of want to be back out of melody stance again. Now there are some other buffs that they added to melody stance as well. I think your Dissonance Piercing Cry is only going to get that stun effect in melody stance. Actually, can I go ahead and activate that? Yeah. So we have apply to target on critical and devastating critical there, the 5-second stun. I believe that disappears when you're not in melody stance, which I do kind of miss having that, but not enough to switch from having 15% dissonance cry and call damage and ballad damage down to just ballad damage being increased and by a lesser amount. So yeah, I don't know. If you play Minstrel and you find melody stance interesting, I'd be happy to know why. That being said, so we're going to have to care about stance changes affecting anthems anyway if we're looking at the duration of your anthem during this anthem detection function. And I was thinking we might do that anyway. So that's what's up with that. So do we have a thing for stance change? We do have a thing for stance change. This was something MistrelBuff already paid attention to, and so we can kind of hook on into that. Let's see. So it'd probably be good to separate this out into its own function, because we still have stuff about caring about stance changing. So if we make a new function for updating which anthems are trained, update trained anthems, something like that, then we can go ahead and just make that a function. In fact, we can stick it right here. So function MistrelBuff main, and we're just going to call it update, same thing, update trained anthems. And doesn't need to take any parameters, I don't think. And this is where we're going to do stuff. It wouldn't hurt to go ahead and just do a bit of a debug, turbine.shell.writeLine, just to announce that we did in fact call this function. Okay, and then if we come back and unload and reload this plugin, then we can change stance. Bam! Update trained anthems. Done. We can go ahead and change on back, and we see it is called again. So great. We can see that that is being called when we want it to be called. Okay. Oh, and I don't think I've mentioned it so far, but Standing Stone Games and the streamers of Lord of the Rings Online are trying to raise money for children's hospitals. So if that's something that you're interested in doing, be aware that you can do it here. I'm not personally raising money for this, but Little Redhead is. She was on just before me. And if you do contribute to Extra Life for anyone, regardless of it's for us or Standing Stone Games, do take a look at that community loot list link that I just dropped into the chat there over at LOTRO.com. You can get some pretty neat in-game rewards for having donated to charity. So the steps for how to do that are in there, but let's see. It'll look something like this. So, why? It's awesome. How can I help? You can donate money. What should I do after I donate? Click this link. And the incentives that you can get are based on your individual donation, and there's a whole list of things that you can pick from. And there's also a group incentive if they meet certain donation milestones. And in fact, as we can see on the screen, they've already raised 17,736 money units towards children's hospitals. That's really awesome. Thanks to anyone who has contributed in part of that. I know not everyone's able to. That's totally okay. But if you did, since we've already reached 15,000 and are hopefully going to hit 20,000 as well, there's going to be giveaways for participants, and that's pretty neat. So I've dropped those links into chat there, and if you are so moved to donate, then that is awesome. It's always the combination of willing and able, because of course so many people are not able to donate, but they would love to. Totally understand. Don't put yourself into your own financial discomfort for this. Okay, so that being said, we have a function where we can take a look at those trained anthems. So the first thing is we have already a reference to local player. This is turbine.gameplay.localplayerGetInstance. And it's going to be a good idea to pull up the API documentation at this point. I've got a reference here. And let me make sure that's on screen with all the other stuff that's on screen. It's not as much on screen. Oh, it's okay. I'll just move the code on over there a little bit. Okay. So we are looking at turbine.gameplay, and local player has a static function called getInstance. And that's very handy. We can see it's marked here with an S, static. And that gets the thing that is your local player. And from that, we can call get trained skills, which is exactly what we want to iterate through if we're going to go ahead and look at your trained skills. And we can see that returns a skill list. And a skill list has two things you can do with it. You can get an item at a specific index, and you can get the total number of them. So we can put that all together. Let's see. Where's my new function? Trained. There we go. Okay, we can put that all together. So the first thing we want is that get trained skills. So trained skills seems like a good name. And we're going to use that local player reference and just call get trained skills. Awesome. And then we do need to pull out that count. Well, need is a strong thing. I do not have an intuitive sense under the covers of if you do a for loop. So for instance, for I equals 1 up to something. For instance, trained skills get count. Incrementing by 1, do stuff. So I don't have a good internalized sense of, is this going to call get count once or every time through the loop? And there's good reasons to have it be either of them. I just don't know what it is. And so the traditional way of avoiding that question completely is to go ahead and just hoist that out. Local trained skills count equals trained skills get count. And then you know for sure that is only getting called once. Now, there's actually a really easy way to test that if you have your own object with this kind of functionality, is you just put a print line in there and just see, does it get called once or does it get called 7 times or 17 times? But because we can't easily edit the function get count here, or we're going to hold off on that. So we'll just go ahead and hoist that out into its own variable. May not strictly be necessary, but again, I'm just not sure. And we're going to iterate through and do something with those trained skills. Oh, I do need a do there. Okay, so let's take a look at what else. You know, we're going to be calling this function more than once, and it's going to be setting the value of an anthem being trained to true. Oh, hey, I hear the noise of donation to charity coming through somewhere. That's awesome. Thank you, Anonymous, for donating money towards children's hospitals. Looks like it might even be in support of Little Red Head's fundraising goal. That's awesome. In fact, it's so awesome. Let's follow Little Red's goal and do some flips in game. Flip! I really love the Hobbit flip. As mentioned, we get the little jazz hands almost coming in. You know what? I've recently unlocked spin. Let's do a spin as well. I find emotes on Hobbits delightful, so excellent. All right, munch time. Okay. Well, Real Tough is smiling in chat. I don't know if that donation was from you, but either way, this is excellent. Definitely worth smiling about. Okay. And thanks from Little Redhead in chat. So we want to go ahead and I was just thinking, so we're going to be setting that table that we have is Anthem trained. We're going to be setting that to true. But that means we want to start with the default assumption that it is not trained. And so it might be helpful to just have a function here that resets the values in here. And this is going to look really basic. This function, I don't know, reset. Reset trained anthems. Sure, reset trained anthems. And it doesn't need to take anything. And oh, it should be a member of the settings class for ease, I think. I'll have to think about that. Okay, and here we really just want to redo all of this setting to false. I'm going to use a select here. I'm going to do a multi-select to make sure we're indexing into the table. So is Anthem trained equals false. And that lets us just call this right before we start setting some of them to true. Okay, I feel better about that. Let's go ahead and Yeah. Start by assuming each anthem is not trained. And that's a self.settings is, oh, what do we call that? Reset trained anthems. Okay. Cool. And then we can iterate through each of the skills and do stuff. All right, let's see. First thing we do in here, let's go ahead and save off the skill that is being indexed by I. And for that, we're going to go ahead and do local skill equals, and that's trained skills of I. But by definition, these are trained skills, aka active skills. And so we're probably going to want to get at some of the things that you can get from active skills that are extra, like the cooldown of the skill. Getting the cooldown of the anthem is definitely something we wanted to automate, and we looked at some of that last time. Let's see, possibly the reset time as well. I don't know, what's in the skill info? The icon image ID. Oh, we're going to get that either way. That's from a skill. So we're getting a skill, but we're not. The IntelliSense isn't seeing it as an active skill. There's a way, and this might have been something we did last time and that got removed. But let's go ahead and add it back, if so. So we're going to add a function get active skill. And this is going to trick the IntelliSense, or maybe it's the right way to do it, I'm not sure. But we're being passed a skill, we're going to return that skill, but we're going to annotate it with, so this is gets information about the skill. Sure. Actually, this is treat a skill as if it is an active skill. And then we're going to use the @return and then the type. Active skill, and then we can give it information about an active / trained skill. Okay. Yeah, something like that. And that'll let us, instead of just indexing into here and getting a skill, because we know it is a trained skill, we can go ahead and directly treat it as an active skill. So let's see, what do we have? Instead of trained skills, we're going to go ahead and say get active skill of trained skills. Something like that. Oh, but of course that's not going to work. We need to call the function get something something. This was a skill list. I'm so used to the indexing of tables, but we're going to use the get item of I. Okay, and from this active skill, we can now get a couple of things. We can get the skill info. Get skill info, awesome. Skill name might be necessary. How are we going to tell if this is one of our anthems? In the settings, we're indexing is anthem trained by the name of the skill, and so we need that name. Local name equals skill. Is that part of the skill or part of the info? Info. Let's see. Skill info. Get name. There we go. Okay. Get name. All right. So we have a skill which we think is an active skill. The skill info, and we have the name. Now we can even call it skill name just for consistency. Okay. So. We have potentially a lot of trained skills, and a thought I had was that we know the icons for these skills. We have the skills that we can map to icons, and we can invert that table to have a lookup of, given an icon, is there a corresponding skill that we care about that is an anthem? And so we can, instead of doing textual comparisons each time, is this the skill we care about? Is this the skill we care about? I had this thought that what if we do a comparison of these numbers? Is the skill ID this appearing in here? And that feels like a faster lookup. I don't know if it is a faster lookup, but that feels like a faster lookup. So that's maybe an optimization we can take into account. That being said, the simplest thing is to just take a look in the is Anthem trained table. So if we do is Anthem trained, if that, and we have this skill name. So if there is an entry there, if it's not equal to nil, then and of course we could do an else, and then I don't know, turbine dot shell dot write line skill. Well, we can just use the skill name. Skill name is not an anthem. Cool. So we can do that as a quick debug check. And then if it is trained, or if it does show up in the is Anthem trained table, then it's an anthem. Awesome. So we can go ahead and, I don't know, say so. Okay. Is an anthem. Maybe make it more different. Found an anthem! Exclamation point, and then the name of the skill. Okay. Let's do a basic testing here. We've written some code. Let's go ahead and unload and reload. And we can see we didn't actually call this function anywhere yet. But if we change stance, we get output for every single skill. And we can see there's a lot of skills. But conveniently, we do have some down here at the bottom that are still on the screen. We can see found an anthem, lesser anthem 2 dissonance, found an anthem, lesser anthem 3 composure, and greater anthem 2 war. All of that is great. And we see other things that are indeed not anthems. Call to Fate, Skeleton, Painted Pony, Black Bat, all of that good stuff. This character has a lot of skills. Thank you, festivals and chickens. My goodness. We could see it would be very nice if there was a faster way to get access to these skills. Like, only show me skills of type Anthem. But Baz says, and I agree, it bothers me so much that the Dissonance Anthem has a trailing space. Yeah, I did submit a bug report on that one just because it's not there in the skill hover over, obviously. But how would you tell, right? Like, the name of the skill here might have a trailing space. And in a data dump I looked at, it didn't have a trailing space, but that could just be because they, trim it in that program, so maybe it does. So it's very weird to me that Lesser Anthem 2 Dissonance has a trailing space, and that's the kind of thing that just can creep in when you're doing software development, right? Like there's a trailing space there, especially when this is in a resource file. A resource file looks a lot more like XML. I don't have one at hand, but I work with these in my day job. And the resource file, if they're using something like that, you have the text that you're looking for, the value that it should be, so French or German or English, and it's super easy to just have a space in there. Now, this the code base is old enough that it's probably using something a little bit older than XML resx files in Visual Studio, but the same principle applies, right? Like someone just hit a space and didn't notice. But yes, it bothers me too, Baz. I'm totally on board with you. But as long as we know about it, we can take it into account until such time as they are able to fix it on their end. And that could be never. It's such a low priority thing, right? Like, it affects people who are looking for the name of the skill in a list of trained skills, plugin developers, and we can account for it. So it's it's not a breaking thing from our point of view. And from their point of view, there's so many things they'd rather be working on than removing a space from here, making sure it propagates to the English and French and German resource files, and so on, right? It just, if it never gets fixed, we won't care that much as plugin developers. But it is kind of a funny thing. Okay, so we can confirm that we're finding these things, right? So I think we don't need these lines quite now, but it's good to keep them around just in case. Let's see. Yeah, so we have a trained skill. Let's mark it as trained. Just gonna add a comment here, and okay, so this was is Anthem trained, skill name equals true. It's trained. Baz asks, are you doing this work every time you swap stances? And the answer is yes. For now, I do not know of a more reliable way to tell that you have switched trait trees, because as a minstrel, when you switch trait trees, it causes your stances to pulse, right? Like you get a notification that your stance has changed. And Baz, I don't know if you've just shown up or were here a while ago, but in the recent Bull Roar notes, if you have changed from not melody to melody, or from melody to not melody, then the duration of your anthems is going to change. And I had it in my head that while we are checking your trained anthems, we will also check how long those anthems last for, because how long your anthems last for changes the calculation on which anthem is most important. So yeah, melody stance now increases anthem duration by 15 seconds. Well, I better care about whether you have gone into or out of melody stance. And so yes, for right now, we're going to do this each time you change stances, but it does seem to be a pretty fast thing if you're not doing the writes to chat. So if, let's see, I've gone ahead and commented those out. So if I unload and reload, the real question is, if I do that, it feels like a very fast thing. Certainly I'm stuck in place finishing the animation for much longer than the plugin does. And yeah, Baz, I was with you. Last week I was all like, oh no, doing this every time we change stances because we don't know how to detect trait tree changes. That feels so excessive. And then the patch notes came out and it's like, oh, never mind. need to do it every stance change. Oh well. Baz points out, for tracking trait trees, you can read the advancement chat channel to detect trait tree changes. Good point. If we go ahead and change a filter, actually no, let's make a new tab. And we'll go ahead and call that one advancement. And in this one, we only want to see the advancement channel. Then when I go ahead and do a trait tree change, we see you have acquired the blobbity blah, right? And specifically, Lesser Anthem 1 Resonance skill. So we can look for those specific ones there. But because we care about the stance changes, but maybe we only care about stance changes separate from this for Anthem duration, and maybe that's a faster thing. It's a good question. Let me put a note here. Would it seem better to see that my problem with this is the advancement channel? If we need to parse every text that goes to the advancement channel, is that actually more work or more overhead for a plugin than just on a stance change recheck your trained skills? Oh, that's an interesting point. Baz is pointing out into chat that I only care about the effect melody. I don't necessarily care about detecting a stance change. And so if that effect comes in as dissonance or melody, or I assume resonance is the name of the other effect. That's interesting because we are already paying attention to for melody versus not melody. We can pay attention to the effect added melody and effect removed melody. I like that. I wasn't thinking about the fact that we always have an effect active for our stance, but that makes sense. So that would be cool. That would be a cool way to, and then we just need an anthem skill that we can hang on to and say, hey, what is your duration? Okay, let's see about this. So we need an anthem equals nil. And we just need that in order to query it. What is your duration, I think? Baz asked, does the minstrel attribute stance work? I don't know. Let's see. Where is minstrel? Stance changed. I think it must, because I think that's what we're using for it. Stance changed. Yeah, we're doing... we're adding to class attribute stance changed minstrel. Yeah. So yes, that is how we are detecting the stance is getting changed. So that is a good question, Baz. The class attribute stance changed is coming in. Although what I find interesting... Yeah, so we're getting a class attributes, but that's probably just the base attributes. And so we're just assuming the stance change is going to be there. That might very well fail if you tried to load this on a non-minstrel. But since we're checking local class equals minstrel, no problem. We know by definition this get class attribute should be a minstrel attributes. Again, I would probably wrap that in a function so that the IntelliSense can see explicitly that it's a minstrel attributes, but that's okay. And then we can add this callback, or we can use the add to callback function to say, hey, class attributes dot stance changed equals a thing, but in a multiple dispatch friendly way. Love it. Okay, great question, Baz. Thank you. So if we go ahead and save off an anthem, don't care which one, because right now they all have the same cooldown. Oh, good point. Baz points out it will set a callback, or it'll assign that function to be a member of the thing. It'll just won't trigger. So it's not a crashing bug. It's just like, oh, you've tried to add it, and nothing's ever going to care. Okay, so in this function, if it's a trained one, the first time we find an anthem, we just probably want to save that off. So if an anthem equals nil, then we want to go ahead and say an anthem equals skill. So my real question is, can we do this? Can we just save off the skill and just say, hey, what's up with you? Or does it always have to be an active skill, or do we have to requery? So after this, we can now say turbine.shell.writeLine unskill cooldown, and we can say skill get cooldown. Cooldown? Yeah. Duration is what we want. How do you tell the duration? Do we care about the duration? maybe we don't care about the duration here. Okay, so here's the thing I was conflating in my head. So the cooldown of the anthem starts at 25 seconds. You can get it down to 20 seconds with traits. So we come on in here, anthem. We can use invigorating anthems to get that down to 20 seconds. That's how long you have to wait after you do an anthem before you can do another anthem. And we care about that. But we only care about it when you're doing this stance-changing thing. But specifically, the class trait Invigorating Anthems. So here you have acquired the class trait Invigorating Anthems. So if we assume you don't have it, and then if we see that you did get this on the Advancement tab, then I hesitate to bring chat parsing into it if I can avoid it. Excuse me, because I don't know what else is going into this Advancement tab. Like, does every time you get experience, does that go into Advancement, or is that going somewhere else, for instance? But we can assume 25 seconds. If you've got Invigorating Anthems, then we care, but we don't know which or how invigorated your anthems are, so we do still need to look at an anthem. So for that, for the cooldown, we need, every time we change stances, or really trait trees, we want to check to see what is your anthem cooldown. But the duration of the anthems is coming from melody. Actually, I think we don't care about that, because we care about when anthems are going to expire, but this just means that they're going to take a little longer to expire. So if we're calculating how much time until this thing expires, then we have to we automatically take into effect extended anthems. We take into effect the melody stances, upcoming plus 15 seconds, just in hey, how much time is left on this thing? So we don't care about that. Okay, I no longer care that melody stance increases anthems by 15 seconds. Yeah, exactly, Baz. I don't need to care if I'm a melody, because it's just part of the anthem effect, which I do get access to. But I no longer care if I'm in melody. It's just the anthem duration for now. I could totally see them coming back and saying, you know what, if you're in melody, then the cooldown has changed or something weird. But yeah, we'll just call it that. I've stopped caring about that. Okay. So unskill cooldown, and then here we just want the get cooldown, and that I think would be interesting to see. So let's come back in, unload, reload, and then go ahead and change stances. Okay, so each unskill that I looked at was 20. That's funny. Let's actually pull that out. I only want to see it once. So if unskill is not equal to nil, then, I mean, I don't think it's possible for a minstrel to not have an anthem. But just in case, we'll do a check for an anthem. Oops. All right, and then we'll do an anthem get cooldown. Okay. So unload, reload, and then changing back to melody. Unskill cooldown, great. And then if we change on over here, well, that's interesting. I did not see that getting called. Okay, but we do see unskilled cooldown 25, and so we already had it saved off. We were able to interrogate it. Neat. I'm vaguely curious what the name of that is, actually. All right. So I've gone ahead and just said log out the name of the skill that we're tracking, just out of curiosity. Lesser Anthem to Dissonance. That's actually really neat. So if we come on in and we change, I am not seeing an updated update. Update trained, Minstrel Strength. Okay, so I'm not seeing that reliably when I'm changing these stances. So I think the advancement text might be the next most reliable thing, because that always shows up. Okay, but we can see the unskill. The cooldown is 20, even though I don't have access to Lesser Anthem to Dissonance in Blue Line Minstrel. So okay, that's neat. I'm not seeing a stance changed call reliably when changing trait trees. Frowny face. Use advancement chat tab instead. Okay. Good to know. But it's good enough for this purpose right now, I think, because the update trained anthems function can be called wherever. So we know how to trigger it right now. What we really just want to do is change to a chat monitoring situation where we see something coming in on the advancement tab. And again, we're going to have this for English and French and German, but we can be looking for, you have acquired the class trait. And if we see that text, then we know we're in the middle of that happening. And it might be, since there's a built-in cooldown in-game, I think it'd be safe to say if you see you have acquired the class trait, then you can just stop caring about that for a good 10 seconds. So the first one you see, great, and then the rest of these you just don't care. Not until it's been at least whatever that cooldown is, 10 seconds, maybe. Let's see, 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005, 1006. Okay, we're going to go about 25 seconds guess on the cooldown for that. So if you see you've acquired a class trait, you get to stop parsing for the next 20 seconds because you just don't care. It cannot matter. So make a note about that. Once you see the localized version of you have acquired the class trait, stop parsing advancement chat for 20 seconds. Great. And checking to see if it's been 20 seconds ago, we're comparing one number representing the time to another number representing the time, or possibly a floating point number. And comparing numbers or floating point numbers is a pretty fast operation comparing to parsing dozens of strings. So maybe it's a premature optimization, but I'm always in my head trying to avoid chat parsing where possible. And so if we can just not parse chat, it's just that feels better than parsing chat, or even checking to see. Yeah, because you don't know which class traits you're going to acquire, so you're really looking for a couple of them. You're looking for Lesser Anthem 1 Resonant skill or Lesser Anthem 2 the other skill, if you're looking for specific skills. Yeah, that's a good point. The process of swapping traits is going to dominate the conversation on are we going to notice a delay in the game. The process of adding and removing that many skills just takes a moment. And so even if a plugin added an extra half a second under the covers, it's just not going to come up. But I do like to be a good steward of the plugin environment, and I feel like avoiding parsing every chat text is just nice if you can get away with it. And I think here we can. Okay. So we are going to, I will make a note here, to move this to advancement chat parsing function. Let me just, yeah, like that. So for now it's in the wrong place, but we can keep on keeping on. Okay. we are currently capturing off an anthem. And I don't know how much do we need that. What we really want is the cooldown and the reset time. Like, what's the total cooldown time, and if we are on reset time, when is it available? Because those two, it's available in n number of seconds between now and the cooldown. So we need those two things. I don't know that we actually need to save off an anthem. I'll leave that there for a minute. But what we really need are a couple of variables. So we need the cooldown in seconds. And that's going to be equal to something by default. Our current value, question mark. And we need the anthem reset time. And that is also going to be equal to something. The last seen value, question mark. Baz says in chat, one thing you did to avoid getting problems due to this lag is delaying the regathering of the data of the plugin. In the case when the player's game is lagging and the API does not get the new skills right away. That's a really interesting point. It is quite easy to just say, this is a thing I want to do after a number of seconds. I like that idea. Also to do, delay calling this until n seconds after we see a trait change. I don't know how many seconds is reasonable, but a couple, right? Actually, a thing that we can do is we're going to see the first time this chat comes in. If we did want to look at every line of chat coming in, we can just say, wait until it's been a second since we've seen an advancement. So all of these are coming in, but I think it's better to just say, okay, we'll wait 5 seconds, let the game settle down, and then give it a call. Thanks, Moobot. If you missed the Deco Demu Discord Q&A with LOTRO team, you can find an audio replay and transcript. Nice. Baz did 5, and that seemed good. 5, question mark? Yeah. Okay. So that being said, the thing that cares about the cooldown and the Anthem's reset time is the buff window. That's the thing that is showing this icon over here on the side. So I think we're going to want to have a conception of what does the buff window think these values are. And for that, let's come on into the buff window real fast and just add these in as variables. So like the Anthem cooldown in seconds, we know that defaults to 25. And so that'll change as your traits change, as the invigorating anthems is applied or removed, but it's a good default when starting the game. All else being equal, you've got 25 seconds there. And then the anthem or reset time, kind of by default, it is reset. So anytime before now is good. And now is like 40,000 seconds or something after server start. But so that seems like a reasonable starting point. And then we'll probably want a function for main to say, hey, here are some new values, right? So let's see. Somewhere down here, right? At the end. So we have a function called buff window set anthem cooldown seconds and a reset time. Like, I don't know, naming things is hard. But then we have anthem cooldown seconds. And we have reset time? What do I call it? Anthem reset time. Yeah, there we go. So we're taking in those two values. And so we're going to do something with those locally. But ultimately, one of the things we're going to do is to say self equals that, all right? Like self.anthem cooldown seconds equals anthem cooldown seconds. Self.anthem reset time equals anthem reset time. And then buff window can do something with that. And we're probably going to care about if those values are different from the ones we already had. But we'll come back to that. Okay, so if we can trust that buff window has a good default value and is keeping these updated values as we find them, then we can just say, I think we have a buff window saved in the self here, right? So self.buff window, maybe? Well, my IntelliSense is being a little slow, so buff window dot, there we go. And then anthem cooldown seconds, there we go. And we'll do the same thing for the reset time. Self.buff window dot anthem reset time. And that gives us some basic starting values for these things. So my mental model is start with known good values, update them, and then tell buff window, here's what we found. And then buff window can say, oh, that's different or that's not different. So somewhere in here, sure. We basically want to say new cooldown. Oops. Yeah. New cooldown seconds. New anthem reset time. So we want to say new cooldown seconds equals, and we just want that skill. And what was that? Get cooldown. And same thing, new reset, anthem reset time equals skill get reset time. This is going to fire off multiple times, so we could ensure we only do it once by wrapping it with a Boolean check. I don't know how much I care about that, but just for consistency. New anthem times found. So if we say if not new anthem times found, then go ahead and do this. Oh, and we'll need to save that as well. So new anthem times found. Right? So we're only going to set these values once. Given that these are both numbers, copying them around, getting them shouldn't actually take very long, but a Boolean check also doesn't take very long. So, maybe there's some premature optimization going on. So grab updated, possibly updated information for buff window. And then we want to go ahead and give that to buff window, right? So somewhere at the end here. Oh, I think we can be done with that little sample code. We just want to say self.buff window. And we're going to call that same set anthem, that ridiculous thing. Set anthem, cooldown seconds, and reset time. Yep. New cooldown seconds, and new anthem reset time. Something like that. I didn't actually name those consistently. One of them doesn't have an anthem thing, but that's okay. Let's see. What else do we have? So now buff window can know these things. We are getting a list of the trained anthems. It would be neat to also, while we have anthems at hand, we want to know when an anthem, when that reset time happens. And for that, we can latch onto an anthem, and we're getting an anthem, and we can go ahead and use the reset skill something. What do we have here? Skill info. Where's my skill info? Oh, maybe it's an active skill. There we go. The reset time change of an active skill, we can make use of that. And so if we go ahead and have a function for that, yeah, let's make a function. So we know when anthems they've clicked them and they're cycling. Function minstrel buff main and anthem reset time changed, right? Cool. And from that, I don't know, turbine.shell, let's make sure it works, right? Align, and just announce where we are. And that can be latched on here. We know that the anthem's not nil. We're assigning anthem to be skill. So we can say an anthem dot something something, right? Like the reset time changed. Reset time changed. Equals a function. Now I think would get into trouble if we tried to pass this directly. This is a class function, and so its signature is a little bit different. But we can take advantage of an anonymous function. So we can just say that's equal to an anonymous function, sender args, that calls self anthem reset time changed, and passes on sender args. And then in here, we can take sender and args if we want them. We may not do anything with them. Cool. So we have an anthem. Kind of by definition, it's only going to be nil once. Then we're going to assign it to a skill, and we're going to go ahead and register this callback function. So this feels a little bit like overkill. We're going to check for that anthem equal nil every time, but seeing if a reference is nil is a pretty fast operation. So it'll just be nope, 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 nope. Okay. Cool. Let's try that. Oh, interesting. Baz mentions catches both the use of a skill as well as melodies coda / CSTC, cry the chorus, resetting its cooldown. I don't know. Let's see when this comes in. I don't know what part of its life cycle that it gets called out as. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and come into the plugins channel here. We're going to go ahead and get into combat. And let me go ahead and activate this Lesser Anthem 2. So we get nothing. Okay. Why did I get nothing? And it's available again and still nothing. But all of them have that same time. Oh, I haven't changed stances, and we aren't calling this very often. Okay, we need to call update trained anthems in more places, especially when the plugin first loads. Otherwise, we're just going to confuse ourselves like this. Okay, so if I use the anthem, we see anthem reset time changed. Awesome. So to answer Baz's question, I don't know if there's a way to know if the anthem's cooldown has cooled down. Like if an external thing has changed its reset. And the answer is maybe. Let's see if we get a timeout here. No. We do not know that anthems are now available. That's a little sad. Let's see. Reset time changed. Cool. So we could pull it. We could every, 500 milliseconds check to see has that changed. That's not great. Oh, Baz says the event tells you when it'll be available. Yes, but if that is changed by a coda or a cry of the chorus, do we know about that? Let me come into the reset time changed. We're getting sender and args. Oh, the event does fire again, says Baz. Well, that's good. Do I have any of that? Let's see. What does it take for Cry of the Chorus to reset things? Cry of the Wizards. Okay, well, Baz says that the that event is fired if the actual reset time is changed. That's good news. I don't have a trait for that currently. Awesome. And in the reset time change, we can take advantage of knowing about this. Okay. Okay. So we are looking at this update trained anthems thing, and it's just not firing often enough for our purposes. So definitely at the end of the start function, I think. So start. Well, this is where we call buff window start. But this is where we want to go ahead and say, I don't know, self update trained anthem. So when the plugin first loads, we're gonna get that going. And then in that anthem, what do we care about? When the anthem changes, then sender is the event sender, which in this case should be an active skill. And we can get the same thing as we get here, right? Like we can make some local things. So local anthem, oops, cooldown seconds equals that. Let's see. We can say local anthem reset time equals that. And then we can just call that same buff window update function. Now, the cooldown should not change based on using the anthem. So we could possibly avoid this by just saying whatever the current one is. But I don't think it matters that much. We can get it from the active skill, or we can get it from the buff window, but ultimately we have cooldown seconds that should not be changed by using the anthem. But the anthem reset time, that's definitely a thing that we care about. So we can go ahead and just get these from the active skill that we got as the sender, and go ahead and pass them on to the buff window. Yeah. Okay. So when we start up, we're going to check the active skills. When we change stances, we're going to check Beth says you can use it right now with Cry of the Chorus, but can I? Well, Cry of the Chorus, you had to be spec'd in a certain way for that. I remember that changing in the I remember how things reset changing in the Great Changeathon, but I don't remember what it was. Let me see. Minstrel 3 release notes. Yes, please. Okay. Cooldown. Okay, so Anthem share 25-second cooldown. Yeah. Oops. Rank 5 of Invigorating Anthems will cause Cry the Chorus at... Okay, there it is. So if we come on into these alternate stance, we have 5 ranks of Invigorating Anthems. At rank 5, Cry of the Chorus will reset Anthem cooldowns. There we go. Awesome. Thank you, oh Lord Baz. Or Baz. Hello, Lord Zach in chat. Allow me to conflate those two names. And also reset it with Melody Coda by trading the Coda trait in yellow. Oh, right. Yeah, okay. Well, we'll use Cry the Chorus for right now. Okay, so... Did I just reload the plugin? I can't remember. Unload, reload. Yes, there we go. Okay, so coming on in here, we're going to go ahead and... activate this Lesser Anthem 1 Resonance. Great, we have a reset time change. Cry of the Chorus. Reset time changed. Yes, lovely. Thank you, Baz. I appreciate you holding my hand on that particular functionality there. Okay, so we will definitely know if the Anthem becomes available thanks to Anthem reset time change being called, or the reset time change on the active skill. Otherwise, if the reset time does not get reset like that, Lord Zach does not seem to like the color of the Anthem 1 Resonance. Yeah, well. Wait, where are my anthems? Oh, right, I don't have Greater Anthem 1 in this particular build. I was trying to spend... Oh, yeah, it does. In fact, at least one person was mentioning on the forums how this is... some of these are not very colorblind-friendly options. It's one of the reasons why I'm looking forward to being able to bring a little bit more of a UI for this. Yes, Baz, I agree. I'm very glad that all of these Minstrel changes did not result in lesser functionality through the LOTRO API. Okay. Cool. That's good. Let's come on in and see. Okay, so we have the ability to know how long an anthem is that cooldown is going to be, when anthems are going to be available again, and if you've just activated it, those should be pretty correlated. Current time plus cooldown seconds equals reset time. We have... Do we need anything else? Probably not. That's probably everything we needed right now from the main .lua file. Now we need logic, right? We need to know what's going on. And then for that, we already in buff window have this set anthem cooldown seconds and reset time. That's very much a basic functionality here. And we also want a function, buff window, I don't know, recalculate, right? Recalculate anthem priority. And that's where we're going to go ahead and say what anthem should be displayed in this helper box here. Right? Is this the right one? Should it be a different one? Should anything be displayed? Maybe every anthem you've asked for is already active, and there's no point in activating another one right now. Yes, Baz. Baz is pointing out in chat that the cooldown that we got off of that skill, that is always the total cooldown, 20 seconds, 25 seconds, whatever. And the reset time is whatever time the skill will be available if it's not already. So we're going to see, I think, 0 or -1 if it's ready to go right now. And otherwise, it's a game time. And so if you just activate the skill, you should accept current time plus cooldown seconds is pretty much equal to the reset time. So let's see, current time plus cooldown is going to be roughly equal to reset time if you're getting called just as the thing. Now, due to the nature of computers, you're getting called a few milliseconds or microseconds after the skill's been used. So if you normally have a 25-second cooldown, you're probably getting called at like 24 seconds, point whatever, 0.999, something. But yeah, that's that relationship if you're getting called just as the skill is getting used. Then they're associated. But absolutely true. The cooldown seconds doesn't change nearly as much as that reset time does, because that's getting changed every time you use the skill or clear its cooldown with Cry of the Chorus or whatnot. Sadly, on Treebeard, I do not have enough skill points to feel like I can spend up to, up to 20 of them over here on yellow. Without really losing some important functionality. Like, I spent a fair amount in yellow to unlock some stuff, like Anthem of the Free People and Song of Aid, and I've got a whopping total of 14 spent in blue. Oh, Baz is off. Well, thanks for popping in there, Baz. Very useful feedback. Have a good evening. Okay, so we have a function, recalculate Anthem priority. Great. Turbine.shell.WriteLine. So we're going to get called whenever something changes the state. The easiest thing to do is just recalculate every second or every half second or something. In which case, we might not want to be spitting out that we're doing it. But the more complicated thing is, what are the reasons why we'd want to be called? And the answer is, anytime the cooldown seconds or the reset time changes, we'd want to go ahead and recalculate. When we get to end seconds before stuff is going to expire, kind of thing. Like, oh, that stuff is going to expire in less than 25 seconds, and you've got a cooldown of 25 seconds. Okay, we need to go ahead and make that the new priority. The easiest thing is just to constantly check and check and check and check. Lord Zach, I need a higher level for more points. I am the highest level. I'm level 65. That's all we get until January. And then we'll get to go up to 75? I forget what Rise of Isengard is, but I think 75. Because we get Drygok's Lair. Okay, so we have a function. Recalculate Anthem priority. Awesome. Okay. If we're going to want to call this when things change, then we do want to know if something has changed, right? So local something changed equals false. And then we want to set that to true if one of these changes, right? So if self dot, in fact, we can just use most of this line right here. If that does not equal that, then go ahead and set it, but then also set something changed equals to true. Okay, same thing down here. If, we're going to rip most of this. If those two are not equal, then go ahead and update the value and then also set something changed equal to true. And then if something changed, go ahead and call self recalculate. So that's a thing that we can do. That's the first thing we want to do. And then anytime, Lord Zach. Yeah, I'm on Treebeard, and Treebeard gets expansions every 6 months, give or take. And so we're coming up on the end of the Siege of Mirkwood time period, which came out in early July, late June. And so 6 months later, early January, we're going to get Rise of Isengard, and then I'll get another couple points. I'll be interested to see what the table is of point distribution with the new Update 34 system, where they just start giving them at level 2 and you just acquire them. But it's not every level or every other level. Okay, so we're going to recalculate Anthem priority. We also, as we get effects adding or removing, if an Anthem effect is added or removed, we should probably care about that as well. Definitely removed. But maybe added as well, because you can have an Anthem effect added from another Minstrel. So just because an Anthem effect was added doesn't mean you added it. So in that sense, we should probably go ahead and call self-recalculate Anthem priority in a couple other places. So what do we have? We have the Anthem removed and Anthem added. Anthem added function. And we could go ahead and do that here too. So what is this? Anthem added. Cool. Yeah, so maybe I'll comment here, right? Like, if an Anthem effect, right? What was effect or skill? An Anthem effect was added, recalculate the Anthem priority given. Yeah, because if someone else's support has given you an Anthem that you were looking for, then, or Anthem effect that you're looking for, then more power to them. And then same thing here, if an Anthem effect was removed, recalculate that. Cool. Okay, the recalculate function is the heart of it, and I have a couple notes on things I wanted to take into account. But yeah, this is the hard part as far as I'm concerned, is what goes in here, right? The hard part goes here. Because here's where we want to throw all that together. We have information about, what do we? What do we know about the effects? We can get access to the effects. And so we know for each Anthem effect, we can take that into account. So, okay. Check our current Anthem effects for remaining time. And then we want to correlate the effects with the underlying skill. I think that's a reasonable thing to do. And then save off the remaining time for each skill. Lord Zach, you are definitely hearing that the MistrelBuff plugin hasn't been tested on max level 140. I do have a, I don't know, mid 130s character over on Evernight that really I stopped playing mostly when Treebeard came out. And I've got a 116 over on Crickhollow, who's just leveling up from festivals at this point. And those are kind of the high level minstrels that I have. So absolutely, I have not been testing this on a 140 max level minstrel. I suspect other minstrels have, but you'd have to check with them. But during development, it's not getting tested on 140. It's getting tested on a 65 or whatever I am on Treebeard. That's absolutely true. So it's one of the reasons why I try to give some thought to maybe premature optimizations. Because while I only have, I don't know, 100 or 200 skills, maybe a max level 140 has way more. And so maybe we don't want to scan a skill list every second, for instance. So yeah, I try to be gentle on how much the plugin does, even though it does very little to affect me, because someone playing a max level with lesser computer hardware might have a different experience. Okay, so we want to save off the remaining times for each skill. Awesome. And then we want to then go through the Anthem priority queue for each one. Check if its effect is, not present or will expire soon. Yes, Lord Zach. Suggest LOTRO delete skills to optimize the game. I think they, amusingly, are doing something similar. If you haven't seen the Bullroar notes, they are doing a change on how class trait points are being awarded. Where are you? Class trait. Yeah, so they are going to switch so you no longer need to complete deeds and or quests for the granting of class trait points. And I believe this was hinted at in one of the conversations with maybe a Scenario or maybe a Severlin, that this was meant to help with some of the lag issues by reducing server and client load. Growther has a 140 mini and a 6-year-old computer if we need any testing. I haven't heard any performance complaints by anyone who uses the plugin, but then I don't actually know how many people use the plugin. So yes, class trait points are getting moved away from quests and deeds. They're going to be granted based off of leveling up only, and this is why you should take a screenshot of your trait point distribution if that matters. Although for Minstrels, we just had a reset when they redid the yellow, undid the yellow line stuff. So we've already been through this once. But yeah, do take a screenshot of your configuration if that matters to you, because they are going to reset every class trait configuration for all characters. And then, yeah, so I believe this was associated with a lag performance issue that was associated with having to track these things for so many deeds and whatnot. I find it a very alt-friendly policy, because doing all of the class deeds, the class trait deeds on my main character, a little fun and engaging, help learn how the class goes and all that. But doing that on every alt that I have, just if I want it to be viable at all, because it's missing like 13 class trait points, it's like, I don't know how much I care about this character that much. Anyway, so yeah, that's the thing that's coming. If you haven't seen it, do be aware of it, and do go ahead and take a screenshot. Print screen button works. The clipping tool in Windows works. Save off those trait point spends so you can easily recreate them. Yeah, if you have 14 characters, doing those class trait quests and deeds is a bit of a chore. Like, you've already gone through the process of leveling them up. Hopefully, fingers crossed, this is the last time they're going to do major trait work like that, and so we won't see a reset across the board in the near future. But I feel like it's probably been a while since the last time like all trait trees were reset, maybe never. So maybe they get a freebie here. Okay, so we're going to check through, check our priority queue, and, use it. If this is true, set it as the new shortcut. Okay, we've hit 9 o'clock here. I'm going to actually step away for just a moment, but before I do, in case you're not aware, Setting Stone Games is trying to raise funds for children's hospitals. And Little Redhead is participating this year. I am not, but I'm certainly trying to support her and her goals. So if you are interested in donating money to a children's hospital, you can get in-game rewards. You can find that in the chat text there over at LOTRO.com. You can see what's up with that. I'm going to actually put that over here on the screen. Right here. Specifically, the community loot list. Oops. I feel like dark mode doesn't work too well on this. There we go. Okay, so here's the community loot list that is available for people who have donated. And I am going to be right back. Okay. Insert hold music here. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so, that being said, let's start working our way through some logic, assisted by some notes. Okay. So the first thing, we want to go through the effects list and find the anthems. And we need a place to store this information, and we've already got a bunch of tables here. Why not? So let's talk about an anthem skill remaining time table somewhere. So anthem skill remaining times equals, and we're going to make a new table here. Now this is also going to be indexed by skills, so we can just go ahead and grab that. And then this is going to be equal, 0, right? There's, they're all available by default. Oh, I've got a friend who came online. Excellent. Yeah, let's see. Be nice if I didn't have a typo. Okay, so we have a place to store these remaining times. Excellent. Let's go ahead and make use of that. So, we had a reset function that we were using. And same thing, like every time we look at this, we are going to want to reset the remaining times. Reset, oh, what was it? Anthem skill remaining times, something like that. So we'll use a different table name. And this might be better off as some sort of a loop with I pairs or something. This is a very not great way of writing this, but it is a way to get it done fast. So a for loop might be better. Okay, so we have a basic reset skill function. Yeah. Does this need to be part of settings? I don't know. These things aren't part of settings. Maybe I was wrong when I had reset trained anthems be a part of settings. Let's just have it not be for right now and see how we like that. Okay, and it's been a couple minutes since I unloaded and reloaded. Cool, no particular error messages there. Okay, so we have a function to do this reset. So not that one. We're going to reset the times and then get the times back in for any that are not 0. So we'll first call reset anthem skills remaining time. Okay, so we want to check on each active effect. This is going to be a 4. I is going to equal 1, 2. So we get to cheat here. We've already been saving each anthem effect as it comes in. And we've been saving that because... Why can I not drag this around? Okay. As each anthem comes in, we put it into an anthem display. And so we have an anthem display for each anthem. So we don't actually need to check each every effect on us to see if it's an anthem or not. That's already been done, and by definition, if it is an anthem, it shows up in our anthem display list. So what we want is... That's an interesting question. I think what I just thought of does not matter. Okay, so we can iterate through each of those. I equals 1 to the number of self.anthem effect displays. And we can do that. And then, so we can just save off the effect to deal with it. So local effect, and again, that's a anthem effect displays. And we're indexing by I, and we can get the effect of that. Because it's an effect display, we can get the effect. And now we have the effect that is an anthem, and we can just deal with that. But sometimes there is no effect in a spot, so we do want to take that into account. So if effect is not equal to nil, then do the actual things that we care about. If it's nil, no problem, just skip it. And then what do we need? We need stuff and things. Local effect name, we can save that off. Get name, yep. You know what, let's just spit that out right now and convince ourselves that everything's going well. Okay, so in the recalculate, awesome. Let's go ahead and get a training coming up so we can have an anthem. Okay, and we can see we are seeing Anthem 1 resonance and nothing else. Awesome. So everything's good there. Probably don't need to spit that turbine shell redline every time, but that's okay. Why not? What else do we need? We need to save off this skill remaining times, right? So we need to end up with something that looks like Anthem skill something something. Anthem skill remaining times of something equals remaining time, right? Time remaining. We need that. We don't have time remaining. We also don't have the index here, but that's what we want, right? Like, so we want a local time remaining equals something, and then we can use that time remaining here, and we want the skill. We need the local skill equals something, right? So we still have uncompleted stuff, but if we know what the skill is, because again, we just have an effect, we don't have the Anthem skill. So we need to convert an effect to a skill. And we need to remember that an effect can be more than one skill. When we have the... Oh, this thing's still attacking me. That's fantastic. So if we have the lesser and the greater of a 1, 2, or 3, those are going to combine into a single effect. And so we need to be able to convert an effect into one or more skills that have a certain amount of time left on them. So, for example, let's get Greater Anthem. We can see the lesser got combined into the greater, the combined Anthem 3, Composure, and Prowess. That needs to correlate to both of these two skills. Both of them have a cooldown remaining time of 1 minute and 10 seconds. So that's going to require some stuff. Okay, so we need a lookup table. We need a lookup table that will let us convert these two, effects to skills. So Anthem effects to Anthem skills is the kind of table that we need. And this is going to be a 1 to n, right? So we need those effects, and we can grab those out of the language file. All of these effect names. And then these are all keys, so we're gonna wrap them in those, in those brackets. And that's going to be a list of one or more skills. And so for that, we can use a little bit of copy paste here. In fact, let's get an extra space going here. Okay. Cool. So the Anthem 1 Lesser Resonance effect is, if we say that effect, we know it correlates to this skill. And the greater one, we know that correlates to the greater skill. But the lesser and greater correlates to both of them. The lesser dissonance correlates to lesser dissonance skill. The greater war, that's the greater war skill. But lesser and greater correlates to both of these skills. All right, lesser 3 composure, great, we've got the skill. We'll just go ahead and pop it in there real fast. And the greater one, that goes here and in here. And then the Anthem free people just correlates to the Anthem of the free people's skill. Okay, so we have a lookup table that, given an effect, we can tell what skills were involved. And that's neat. We can see this possibly changing over time, depending on how many more tweaks come to Minstrels. So the skill is going to be one or more things. So we need a loop, right? We need for, this is going to be a J, right? We already have I in use, so J1, and we're going to go through that same thing, the Anthem effects to Anthem skills of the effect name. So we got a lesser resonance name, Anthem 1 resonance, and we're going to convert that into a one or more skill names. We're going to go ahead and do that. And both of these will end up in there, right? So now we have the skill. So we can go ahead and get Anthem effect skill, blah, blah, blah. This indexed by J. Now we have a skill, name, Anthem skill, and the skill remaining times, we can go ahead and set that. We still don't know what the remaining time is, but we can use it. Okay, so what do we have here? We can get a couple of things from the effect. One thing we always have access to as a plugin is what is the current time. So let's go ahead and save that off here. Local current time. We get that from the engine, so that's the turbine.engine, and the function get local time. Get game time. We'll get the game time. Okay, so we have the number of seconds since the server was reset, essentially, I think. Okay. We also can get from this effect the start time and the... So, yes, the effect... we have the start time of the effect, and we have the duration of the effect, but what we don't have is the expiration time of the effect. We just know when it was started and how long it is supposed to last. And for an anthem, that is all the information we need. So let's go ahead and get that start time and duration out of the effect. So local start time equals effect get start time. Yeah, we could write effect get start time each time, but it's fine. Local duration equals, and let's be a little more consistent, effect start time and effect duration equals effect get duration. Yeah. You could do this just by referencing effect get start time, effect get duration. If you start using those things more than once or twice in a function, though, it's very handy to just save them off, right? Just capture them as local variables. All right, so we know the expiration time, local effect expiration time equals, and that's going to be the start time plus the duration. Effect start time plus effect duration. Okay, so we know when it is supposed to expire, and therefore the remaining time is the difference between that and now. So we can go ahead and fill that in. We have the effect expiration time minus the current time. And now we know how many seconds there are between now and that. Hooray! Now, that could, due to shenanigans and hijinks, this could be a negative amount of time. That just means it no longer exists. And we could deal with that here. I think we'll deal with that later. But basically, if the thing in Anthem skill remaining times is less than or equal to 0, we don't actually have it. And we don't actually care about that so much as if it's less than a bigger number than 0. Okay. So we have expiration time, we have the time remaining. Cool. Let's add some notes to future selves. We're going to update the remaining time for each skill associated with the effect. Something like that, right? Okay, so that's the first step of this, right, is check the current Anthem effects for how much time is remaining. We've correlated the effects with the underlying skill, and we've saved it off. So all of that is done. And now we need to make use of that. Now that we know how much time is left in each of these anthems, we need to make use of that somewhere. in the Anthem priority. Now remember, we have Anthem Anthem priority. We have a settings of Anthem priority. We want to get that. It's going to look something like this, and we're going to iterate through it, looking for the indices for these Anthem skills. So that's the next step. So for each Anthem in the priority list. Okay. The Anthem priority equals, and again, this is coming from the settings, so we're going to go ahead and get that setting. And we just pass in the name of it, which is Anthem priority. Very handy. Okay, and then we just need to iterate through that, right? So for I equals 1 to Anthem, however many Anthem priority indices there are, do. And I'm able to make use of this octothorpe here because I know that in settings, these are indexed by a sequential series of numbers starting with 1. And so this octothorpe is going to find the first indices that doesn't show up. Oh, it's an 8. Great. Done. If you are indexing by things that are not integers, starting with 1 with no holes in them, then I believe the octothorpe does not work. But I have to check on that every time I care. Okay. So we can go ahead and dig into this. We know this is going to be an Anthem index, so we can call it that and be nice to ourselves. So the Anthem index is Anthem priority's ith member, and that index is going to be an index into the anthems for priority selection thing, right? So if we come on into Anthem, let's search for priority. There we go, anthems for priority selection. So this is the table that shows up in the options, and this is how we correlate one of those indices with a skill. So let's do it. Local anthem, it's not just the anthem name, it's the localized anthem name. Localized anthem name equals that thing indexed by the anthem index. Okay. So now we have a skill name, and we know if that skill is trained. Remember, we have the is anthem trained lookup table. So let's check for that. Let's go ahead and if is anthem trained, and then we have the localized anthem name, then more stuff happens. And we're eventually going to want some way to stop processing this. We are looking for the priority skill, and we only want to keep checking for these if the priority skill has not been found yet. So we might want to go ahead and have a way to do that. Local priority skill. Priority skill. It's going to be set to nil. And eventually we hope to find something. So right here at the beginning, if priority skill equals nil, then we're going to keep doing the rest of this. If it's not nil, then we've already found the skill and we want to stop. And Lua, as far as I know, doesn't have like a continue or really a break statement for us to jump out of the for loop. I think for parsing or script reasons. You can do this in another way by wrapping this in like a do while. And so if that's a way you like better, and maybe I would like that better. Yeah, let's do that instead. So do Oh, can we do a duo? Oh, I don't know. Let's see. Lua, do. While. A repeat and tell. Well, that's not where I was hoping it could show up. While. Alright, while. Yeah, okay. While that do. Sure. So, in here, where was I? While priority skill does not equals nil, do and it's the same basic question, right? We want to stop doing this once we've found the thing, and this is a way to do it. So we're going to go ahead and say while priority skill equals nil, do this, and eventually we need the priority skill to be not nil. Except, I've changed my mind again, because sometimes we're not going to have priority skill. Ideally, if all of our anthems are active and we have a really long anthem time, we just might not have any anthems to do. And if that's the case, we would want that to be nil. Okay, I've changed my mind. So instead, yeah, we're in here. We're going to go through, and then if we haven't found the thing yet, we'll try to find it. If we have, we'll just skip it, and that's fine. We're only talking about 7 of these things. I think that's fine. But it would be worth it to note, do while priority skill equals nil will loop forever if we don't find a priority skill. So we can't use that. This allows for no priority. This if statement allows for no priority skill to be found. Allows for finding no priority skill. Okay, so a little note to ourselves so we don't mess that up. Okay. So we haven't found the priority skill yet. We have the anthem that we're looking at, and we know it's trained, so we can keep looking. I'm going to move this logic on down. Okay. For each one, check if the effect is present. So we're going through the anthem priority queue. For each one, check if it's trained. If it is, check if its effect is not present or will expire soon. And if it is that case, then we're going to set it as the new shortcut. So that's the trickiness, right, is the logic of that. But we have a way to know the remaining time for this thing. We've already calculated it up here, anthem skill remaining times. So let's just grab that while we're thinking about it. So local remaining time equals that indexed by localized anthem name. You know, I call it anthem's name. Let's just call it skill. Anthem skill name. It's fine. But I really need to unify how I'm referring to these things one of these days. And then let's see. We have remaining time. else do we need? Okay, so we need something that looks like if this is expired, or if not enough. Let's keep commenting that, or not enough time left. And then when we're talking about how much time is left, like if we're looking at the Lesser Anthem 2 and it's got 15 seconds left, that's not enough time for an anthem cycle for to use another anthem and then come back to this one. Except if you've got the Lesser Anthem 2 and you don't have, but kind of, yeah, you need the Greater Anthem 2, so that one matters. So if this one's less than, but the other one is more less than, we care about that. So we need a way to know about the other anthem. Not enough time left, and, let me just use capitals here, and other, no, the complementary anthem has more remain. I mean, if it's expired, the other one can be active. But if this one is active and the other one's active, then they have the same amount of time. I don't know. This might be more complicated than it needs. But if this one has not enough time left, then the complementary anthem is either expired or has more. So if we don't have enough time left, and complementary anthem is not expired, then we want to do stuff. Specifically, we want to say that we found the thing. So the priority skill is going to be equal to, now we could just use the name. We could just go ahead and do the lookup now. But yeah, the priority skill is the localized anthem name. Okay. And then we just need to make use of that, right? So after all of this, let's put a pin in all of that logic, and then say if priority skill is not equal to nil, which we can just abbreviate with if priority skill, then because nil does not equate to true ever, then we can go ahead and do the thing, right? We can local data equals. So this is where we have that table of. Okay, we called it skill IDs. So we're going to look up skill IDs of priority skill. That's the name of it. And then we're going to go ahead and update the data of the shortcut, right? So we have that self dot, I don't know, what's it called? Shortcut? Shortcut. That thing. So we have a self dot, anthem priority shortcut. We need to set the data for that to be this priority skill. And then I don't remember if that is sufficient or if we also need to tell the quick slot that it needs to kind of recheck itself. And so just in case, what do we have? Anthem priority quick slot. Let's go ahead and say set shortcut to anthem priority shortcut. And we can come back and get rid of that later if we need to. And then we were talking before about if there's no priority skill, then we want to go ahead and probably just hide this thing. So self.anthem, the quick slot. This thing. We want to go ahead and just set that to be set visible to false if we don't have something for it, which means we need to remember to set that visible to true if we did have something for it, just in case it was not visible. All right, so if we have a priority skill, then we're going to pull the data out of the skill IDs with that priority skill. We're going to set the data, remind the quick slot of its shortcut just in case, and make it visible. That all seems pretty reasonable. So really, we just need to fix all of this pseudocode. Because that's not, this isn't good enough. We just have an if something here, right? So we need to know, are we expired? Okay. We have the remaining time, so we can say local is expired equals remaining time less than or equal to 0. Just in case we had a negative time. So is expired, we can swap that in. Okay, how do we know if there's enough time left? Well, we know what the cooldown of an anthem is. Buff window has that information from main. So we know what the normal cooldown is, and we know how much remaining time there is if the anthem is currently cooling down. So it's either the remaining time, if it's greater than 0, or the cooldown time, because it's, well, but if it's available, then it's available right now. You should do something. Well, let's think about this. What does not enough time mean for the anthem? So we have a remaining time of the anthem cooldown being less than the number of the total cooldown seconds? I don't know. Let me check my notes. Do I have any good ideas here? We have the remaining time. We do. So that's how much time is left on this anthem. And if the anthem's going to expire, okay, so the remaining time, the cooldown seconds is what we're thinking. So the question is, if I were to poke the anthem now, we have 25 by default seconds until we can do another anthem. So if the thing we're looking at now, which is starting at the highest priority and moving down, if the thing we're looking at now has less time remaining than that cooldown, so if we have 10 seconds left and anthems cooldown in 25 seconds, then we want to treat it as if it's basically expired, right? We need to do it now, otherwise it will expire by the time we could do it again. Okay, so that needs to be the cooldown. Okay, so remaining time is remaining time less than cooldown. Local, what are we going to call that? Is will anthem expire if another anthem is played? It's a terrible name. Oh my goodness. Not enough time for other anthem. Let's start with that. And we know that is remaining time is less than the cooldown time. And cooldown, okay, anthem cooldown seconds. That's what we're looking for. So if the remaining time is less than self.anthem cooldown seconds, then we do not have enough time for another anthem. Okay. So we can swap that in to our pseudocode here. So that's the not enough time left. And we were talking about if the other one hasn't been activated yet, then it's the priority. But if the other one is active, then this one is, by definition, the higher one because we're seeing it first. So we need to know about the complementary anthem. So we need... we need a function that says, given an anthem, get the other one. So let's get a function for that. Okay, so let's scroll on up here and find some room here. We need a function, and that function is going to take in an anthem name, right? It's a possibly paired anthem skill, I guess. I don't know, naming things is hard. And so what are we looking for? We're looking for the paired anthem. So get paired anthem. And we have 7 anthems. 6 of them are paired. Lesser, greater, lesser, greater, lesser, greater, 1, 2, and 3. And the 7th, Anthem of the Free Peoples, is not paired. So what do we want to do with that? Nil. There's no paired. Returns nil for Anthem of the Freeps. Okay. So, I mean, it feels like we should be able to do something nice and elegant, but I think I'm just going to brute force this. So, it's going to look like if this possibly paired anthem skill is equal to anthem 1 lesser resonance skill, then return anthem 1 greater. Oh, where are you, IntelliSense? Well, let's make that happier. Return anthem 1 greater compassion. There we go. And then it would just look like that, right? Like else if that thing equals the greater one, then return the lesser one. And so on for a bunch of them. And don't forget to return nil if we didn't find one. Okay. So it's going to look like that. So if we copy this, remember to change that first if into an else if, fix some indenting, and then we just need lesser distance. Okay, so if that's lesser, lesser, and if that is greater, greater. There we go. And then the last pairing, we have a lesser composure. So if that's lesser composure, lesser, lesser, and greater. Okay, so that's the brute forced method of finding the pairs, which is just to hard code knowledge of the pairs. I feel like we could do that with some table lookups maybe, but this is a pretty fast function, I guess. I think I want to leave these separations. Lesser, greater 1. And let's document them a little bit. So that's lesser, greater 2. And that is lesser, greater 3. And then Anthem of the Free Peoples. Okay. Yeah. That's a function. So we now can get the paired anthem. And then we care about if this other anthem is trained. Do we need a function for that? I don't know. Let's start with this. So we have a get paired anthem function. local, probably just like a paired function, right? Paired anthem equals that. And we're passing in the localized anthem name. Oh, that is a self function. Okay. We want to know if this other one is trained because oh, and that can be nil. What happens if you do a table lookup of a nil? Not sure. Okay, so local other or paired anthem is trained. We're going to assume that's false. And then if paired anthem is not nil, then paired anthem is trained. We want that. Is actually just going to be equal to is anthem trained, indexed by the paired anthem. I don't know if you can index with a nil. I guess we could check. Lua table index with nil. Yeah, that didn't really answer. But if people are asking about how to fix table index equals nil, then let's go ahead and just prefix that. Okay, so we know if the anthem is trained. So we can know about the other anthem's expiration. Actually, do we even care if it's trained? Because if it's not trained, then it's expired. Oh, but if it's not trained, then we can't care about it. So I don't have time for other and complementary anthem is trained and not expired. Okay. Yeah. So, really, local is paired anthem trained equals, oh, we already have that, and not expired equals paired anthem is trained and paired anthem and not paired anthem is expired. So we just need that variable. Okay. Local paired anthem is expired equals, we have the anthem skill remaining times here of paired anthem, and really we should do the same thing. We're going to go ahead and say paired anthem is expired equals true. And then in this if, we're going to go ahead and set paired, paired anthem is expired equals anthem skill remaining time of the paired anthem. Is less than or equal to 0. Same thing as RA is expired. And then we have is paired anthem trained and not expired. Is trained and not expired. Okay, and we can place our pseudocode. So complementary anthem is trained and not expired. Great. Paired anthem trained and not expired. And at that point, we kind of have, I don't know, do we have enough? Let's go ahead and undo this pseudocode and say, hey, what's going on here? So give IntelliSense a moment to catch up. Am I missing a symbol? I don't know about that. If and if then, these uppercase ors and ands are definitely messing it up. That was just for my pseudocode ease of reading. So is expired or not enough time for other anthems and the paired anthem is trained and not expired. If the paired anthem is trained, wait a sec. What if we need the paired anthem to be true? If this is false, then the paired anthem is expired. Canis in chat says hi. Hello, welcome to me struggling on the logic for a plugin. Yeah, so if this thing that we're looking at is expired, if this anthem is expired, then it is the priority. Yes. If this anthem, otherwise, if this anthem doesn't have enough time and we don't want to look at the other one. So if the other one isn't trained, that's fine. If the other one is not expired, then kind of by definition it has the same time as this one, and this one's the priority. Okay, I've convinced myself. This is fine. So we have logic here for is expired or this other thing. And whenever we're dealing with complex expressions like this, I really recommend using an extra set of parentheses, even if you think ands should be evaluated before ors or whatever. Just make it clear. We want this expression to be fully evaluated, and then, if the first one's not true. And then we can get the OR result of both of these. If you leave off those parentheses, every once in a while you're going to be very sad because your logic's going to be wrong, and it would just say expired or this, and then the result of that would be ANDed with that, and then, yeah, it's not great. So, bear that in mind. So we have, maybe this is a reasonable amount of logic. Let's try it out and see what is wrong with this idea. So we're going to go ahead and unload the plugin, reload the plugin. No syntax errors. That's great. And let's go ahead and move this out a little bit. So ideally, what we should see happen is this should update whenever this function, recalculate anthem priority, is called. Now, we're not calling this as often as maybe we should. The simplest thing would just be to call it every second. It feels like a lot of work going into it, but maybe. Oh, why not? Before we get into this, let's go ahead and just have an update function. And this is a pretty easy thing to do if you're in control or if you have a control. So in the start function, let's go ahead and just call that thing recklessly. We'll recalculate all the time. So this is, what do we have? So if we're doing anthem priority, like eventually I want a setting for this. Ask for updates. Okay, so self dot window dot update equals a function sender args, and we're going to go ahead and call. We'll make our own update function sender args, and that way we don't have to write it inline here. And then self dot window. We want to set wants updates. Yeah, there we go. Nope, set wants updates. I keep hitting the wrong key. There we go. We're going to say true for that. So function buff window, and that's going to be update, and that takes a sender and an args. And the final thing we want is we don't want to do this all the time. Right, we want to do this maybe every half a second, maybe once every second, and so update is going to get called dozens of times a second, maybe more. It depends on your frame rate. If you have a nice computer with really high frame rate of 100 or 200, then this update function can get called every single frame, and that's too much for our purposes. So let's go ahead and say self.next update time. Each time we do an update, we're going to go ahead and say this is the next time we're going to allow this to happen. So yeah, only redo our Anthem calculations once per 500 milliseconds, maybe. So we do need the current time for that. So we have turbine.engine get game time. Hyrule in chat asks, what is this for? Excellent question. This is Lord of the Rings Online. This is the LOTRO stream channel, and everything here is in some way related to Lord of the Rings Online. But Lord of the Rings Online supports plugins, little downloadable things that you can use to enhance your game experience. A lot of these come from LOTROinterface.com. I'm sure there's other sources for them, but LOTROinterface.com is kind of the place for Lord of the Rings Online plugins. And so what we're working on today is the MistrelBuff plugin, specifically MistrelBuff II, supported by B4. That's me. And we're trying to add some features to it. The recent update 33.2 or something, really changed how Minstrels worked. And so I'm trying to add an ability for us to specify a priority list for your anthems, and then show that the next icon that you would want to use based on your priority list. So that being said, Hyrule says, I started playing this for the first time yesterday. Welcome. If you like the idea of plugins, and you can certainly play the game without them, then there is a program called LOTRO Plugin Compendium available, and you can use it to pretty effortlessly install new plugins. So for instance, some players like using the Travel Window 2 plugin. It's a nice way to organize all your travel skills together. So I can come into the Add New Plugins. I can check Travel Window 2. I can add, and it downloads and extracts and puts it where it needs to be. And then I can just come back in game and press the green circle to refresh our list of plugins, and then we can see Travel Window 2 is installed. If I load it up, it's going to look at my travel skills. It's going to create a little suitcase somewhere. I always lose track of this thing. Where is the little suitcase? Aha! Oh, and we have a little travel window. So you'll get a little travel suitcase. It's very cute. And you'll get a travel window, which has all of your travel skills in it. Now, if you've just started, you probably don't have many travel skills. But me, as a lowly minstrel of level 65, has 3, 4, 8, so 23 travel skills active, and one more available to me, but I'm not going to. Whereas hunters will sometimes have dozens, or I don't know, can you get to 100? But hunters have dozens and dozens of different travel skills because they have the ability to guide their fellowship from one place to another rapidly. So a hunter might have guide to Bree, and guide to Estelden, and guide to the Shire, and all of these different guide to skills. And wardens have mustering, and captains have... No, they have something else. So wardens have mustering, and hunters have guiding too. And so those classes specifically really benefit from a nice little UI to present all these things to. And then of course the plugin allows customization, so you could say, no, I want that to be in a text list instead. And then you can have it in textual form instead. Oh yeah, Trader's Wharf, great, love that place. So that is an example of installing a plugin using LOTRO Plugin Compendium, and just what the travel window in this case looks like. So with the MistrelBuff window, before we get into it, let's go ahead and, we're going to go ahead and get the current game time. And then we want to go ahead and... Sorry, getting distracted by something on my other screen. I was just realizing that game time is probably not a class function, and I wanted the dot notation for that. So if the current time is greater than or equal to the self.next update time, then we can go ahead and do the thing. So the first thing we want to do, self.next update time equals current time plus 0.5. Now, time is measured in seconds, so if we're adding 0.5, we're adding half a second or 500 milliseconds. And then what is the thing we actually want to do? We want to do the recalculation. So what was that? Recalculate Anthem priority? Yeah. Cool. So this is going to get us just every half a second we're going to update our priority. That's not ideal. I would love to cut back on the number of these updating, but I do want to see it in effect. Oops. I've unloaded everything and I just loaded the travel window by mistake. We're going to come back into the MistrelBuff plugin, load that up, and we can see recalculate Anthem priority is happening about 2 times per second. Bonk, bonk, bonk. And we can see that in the timestamps, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20, 20, 21, 21. So we can see we're getting very nice resolution on that update cycle. But if we didn't have that check in there, if we just were calling it like mad, we can see all of these were done in 1 second, right? So a whole a window's worth of updates. So it's desirable to throttle it down. Much more reasonable. Okay, well, we can see it constantly happening, so let's see if the logic does anything for us. Okay, well, that's the first one in the priority list. Oh, hey, we've got some errors. Awesome. Okay, so buff window 872. Great, let's go to 872. Ah, yes, awesome. So I forgot to use the octothorpe operator here. So we do want to iterate through the number of things in there. Okay, but we can see when we reloaded, we now have Lesser Anthem 3 Composure. Greater Anthem 1, Lesser Anthem 2, Greater Anthem 2 are not trained, so that is a reasonable next thing to show. I'm going to go ahead and activate that. And the icon has changed to Greater Anthem 3. It's disabled because we don't have enough ballads. Now we have 2. Now it's enabled but on cooldown. So that's cool. And we can see that we're just getting 2 recalculates every second, which is overkill because there's not a lot going on here. Okay. Now, Anthem 1 Resonance is expiring, and so I feel like we are missing some logic here, because Anthem 1 should be queued up. Now, it did turn into queued up when it expired, but we're missing something. Okay, that's really cool looking. Okay, so what's going on? What are we missing? It was not expired, but it was too low. We didn't have a paired anthem for that one, and maybe that's the problem. So, is Anthem trained? Maybe we want that default expiration to be false, so that if it is not trained, well, it's an and. It shouldn't matter. If it is trained, then the expired is trained, what's the default here? What I'm confused about is, and we probably want to knock that back to like once every 1 second, otherwise it's going to be very spammy. What I'm confused about is why this isn't working. But more specifically, I would like to see that logic. So turbine.shell.writeLine, and this is localized anthem name. We want to start with that. Is expired. And we'll go ahead and dump out the is expired. And then not enough. I'm not going to spell the whole thing. Dump, and we're going to go ahead and get that. And then, what was the last one? Is ... Okay, need to go ahead and wrap that up. Booleans in WriteLine, shell WriteLine statements are not welcome. Okay, and we can see we're only getting one update a second. So is expired, true. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and activate this. And you know what? Let's make this a little bit wider of a window. Okay, so what we're really looking for is when this thing gets down below my Anthem cooldown time, which is difficult to see when it is cooling down. Okay, 20 seconds. So when there's less than 20 seconds left on Anthem 1 Resonance, I would expect that to be the new priority. Is expired, false. Not enough, false, is false. So all that's false. And what I would expect, what I would hope, is that when this drops below 20, that the not enough time is going to switch to true. But that is paired anthem trained and not expired is probably what's getting us into trouble. Yep. Okay. So we don't have a paired anthem. So we need something. So if it's expired, is one thing. That dominates. If we have a paired anthem and it's expired, that is a priority. And then otherwise, this one should be a priority. No, if this one is more important. If this one does not have enough time, the only time on the other one should be if we want this one re-upped and the other one, if we have a pair and if it is expired, then we want to favor that one. So is paired anthem trained and not expired needs to be true if the paired anthem is not trained. That's a problem. That's the problem. So we have not, and we do this in parentheses, not paired anthem is trained, or paired anthem is trained and not is expired. That will fix this logic. If the Priority Anthem is not trained, then it just needs to be true. And if it is trained, then we look at this. Now, I think there's probably a good way to simplify this logic. We could use what's-his-face's rule on this, but I don't know that would simplify. That's okay. I am comfortable with that. Let's go ahead and launch this, and that'll tell us if we've got that logic right. So we want to go ahead and use the Lesser Anthem 1. Oh, it's so good. We automatically are told Lesser Anthem 3 is our next priority. DeMorgan, thank you. Egg Arthur has called it out. Yeah, there's a way to invert the Boolean expression. And maybe that would result in a simpler expression here, but it's okay. Okay, so once again, when Anthem 1 resonance gets below the 20 seconds, then kind of by definition, because it's the top of my priority queue, I want that to be the next one selected, because if I don't, then if I do a different anthem, this one will run out before we have time to do it again. So that's why I care about this, and also burn some time, because my anthem length is so long in this stance. I should really be doing this in redline. I keep forgetting to change. That's okay. So ideally what we're going to see is we get below 20 seconds. This composure should switch back to resonance. Yes! Oh, so good. All right, I'm going to run into a nearby house to get out of combat with this thing so that I can switch over my trait stances. This would be a little bit faster, but it's got to load all the cool stuff in this house. All right, there we go. Okay, so we want to make sure it recognizes what skills are trained, so I'm going to change stances here. And okay, so same thing again. We have Lesser Anthem 2 Dissonance ready to go. Let's fire it up. And we can see we've got a full 25 seconds cooldown here. But the next one in my priority list that is trained, let's go ahead and pull that back up, is Greater Anthem 2 War. Awesome. So that would be the next one that we want. And what I would like to see is that Anthem 2 Dissonance, even if it gets below 25 seconds, we should still see War here, because War is the pair of Dissonance, the Lesser Anthem 2 and Greater Anthem 2, and War would refresh Anthem 2 Dissonance. And we do see that. We're below 25 seconds, and War is still up, because that's good enough. Okay, awesome. Now we have Lesser 3 Composure, which is the third and final anthem that this stance, this build out has. Okay, so interesting. Distance and War. Yep. Okay. So what we have here is Anthem 2, Distance and War, only has 30 seconds left. So we're about to need that one to be the higher priority. Yes. Okay. So we can no longer we can no longer care about Composure, because the one we really care about, in this case, both of them, Lesser Anthem and Greater Anthem 2, are both higher priority than Lesser Anthem 3. So those were about to expire, or would have expired, if I had gone ahead and done Composure. So they are out of this. Composure is out, and Dissonance is in. Okay. So, but if you time it right, if you're in combat for long enough and you can time it right, you can get Composure out here. And so we'll do that. And there's nothing to do for 5 whole seconds. That's the other part of our logic, is if there's nothing that's due, and now there is, then don't show anything. And maybe some minstrels would like to have the next thing always showing. I'm not sure. But in this case, we only have 8 seconds left. We do want to refresh that, and oh, that's so good. Love it. That's pretty much exactly what I had envisioned. I guess if you play a minstrel, let me know in chat if you think it'd be better if this was always showing, just like the next thing to refresh, or if you really only care about it once it's close enough to expiration that that you want to do something about it. Because I feel like you want to spend as little time managing anthems as possible while you're in combat, but maybe it's better to have it up. Like if it's up, I'm tempted to click on it. So for me, having it disappear is beneficial. I don't know. I'm very excited to see this working, and to have spotted some issues as we saw the lack of knowledge when we're switching trait stances. Oh, we're out of combat. We can solve that with the advancement chat. Excellent. Okay, we're going to go ahead and comment out some of this chatter. Okay, so we can see that that's being called every half a second. That's not great. We do want to only call that when it needs to be called. Oh, hey. Well, someone has donated money towards the Standing Stone Games team. I can see that coming in. I don't think it was for Little Redhead specifically, but who cares? It was for children. So we're going to go ahead and do a little flip here as a thank you to whoever, whether you're watching or not. It's totally fine. And we'll even do a spin because Hobbit spins are great. Awesome. Well, thank you to Egglewing for the $50 donation towards children's hospitals in Standing Stone Games' name. That's great. And that's going to get them... Oh, Little Red, I think someone might be mentioning it on the DDO channel as well. So, because they donated 50 money units, they will have access to a forum title of their choice within the community guidelines. And let's see, these are cumulative. So they get the forum title and a pick from the community loot list, and 2 more, and 2 more, and 4 more. So what is that? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, if I've got that right. In addition to the anniversary celebration corgi pet, you can get in-game titles. I have several of them as a minstrel. I have musician, I think, possibly both prefix and suffix. Let's see, musician. I've done this as a previous one. So yes, musician, affidel, musician, speaker for the musicians. Why not? Where did that come from? Oh yes, nice. All sorts of things, housing items, pets, musical instruments. You will have more options than there are things if you donate 50, if this is your first year donating. Lots of fun stuff. The Seed of the White City is very pretty. The Cromello and Perlino steeds, maybe all 4 of these, cannot be obtained in-game in any other way. So if you're a mount collector, this might be a time to fill some of those in. All right, enough shilling for charity. All right. Oh man, we're way past time, aren't we? Okay. Oh, hey, there's a chat. Okay. So first answer is I am not actually a Standing Stone Games employee, so I can't speak on their behalf, though I can tell you some of the things that they have told the community in the past. So, Polon in chat is asking, why does this game not exist in Portuguese? And the basic answer is, it's hard. There is a lot of text in the game. This is an MMO, and while that means there are graphics, it's a very text-oriented game. Every quest, every deed, everything in the game has text. And I think if they were doing it starting now, they probably would have serious questions about whether they were even doing it in French and German, which are the only other 2 official languages supported. It's a lot of extra effort on top of the English. And so if you were to take the game as it stands now and try to localize it to another language, it would be like translating multiple volumes of books. There are, I don't know, hundreds of thousands, millions possibly words in the game. It is expensive. It's expensive to do it at all. It's very expensive to do it well, and very time consuming. And so I think that's probably the basic answer is a lot of people around the world speak enough English to be able to enjoy this game that it's a big question about how much money do you spend bringing the game to people who don't speak English very well, but who would enjoy the game. How much money can you unlock via people paying for the game in order to justify doing the thing? I think if it was free, they would have it available in every language. But since it's not free to do that and costs money and time and effort, it's a problem. I would encourage, if you haven't already, speak up on the forums and do say, there's this great community who would love to do it. But I suspect the answer is, though I don't know because I'm not an employee, that it's a very hard job and the return on investment is uncertain. So that's all I've got. If it were up to me, it would be available in Brazilian and in Dutch and in so many other languages, and it's not up to me, which is probably good because translating into Dutch is not a good financial decision. It's a good decision for me. It's not a good financial decision for them. Okay, sorry if that's not a very satisfying answer. I would love for it, if I could wave a magic wand, I would love for it to be localized in as many languages as possible. It's just not where we're at. I don't have a good sense of how many words are in the game, but if we spitballed and said there's 1 million words that need to be translated, and if you were paying a reasonable translator X number per word, you can kind of see where X money per word. You can see where, or more like per sentence or per text. You can see how that would be very expensive very quickly. Okay, on to this thing, where we are calling this function every half a second, and that seems like a lot. It seems like too much. And so we are already calling it in a couple other places. We were calling it when we added and removed effects. Let's bring that back up in code. Okay. In code, we were calling recalculate anthem priority where in our update thing. So that's a place where we should stop doing that for right now. Where else? An anthem added, okay. An anthem removed. And if our anthem reset time or cooldown time changes. Those are all very good. Let's see what this looks like in just those cases. So I've disabled the every second update. Let's just go ahead and reload the plugin. All right, and get into combat here. Okay, so we can see, even without the every second update, because we added an effect, we triggered that recalculation. And if I were to go ahead and do Greater Anthem 2 War, we're going to see another recalculation because we have added and or removed more effects. In fact, both a remove and an add. So I'd expect to see that twice. Yeah, at least twice. Because we lose the Anthem 1 dissonance, we get the combined Anthem effect. And that's actually its own problem. Let me, while I'm waiting for things to time out. Okay, change to trigger recalculation. So what I would like to see instead is when we see something that should cause a recalculation, we want to queue that up. We want to queue that up so that after a tenth of a second, whatever, after we've seen this settle down, we can go ahead and do the thing. So you queue it up and you wait a tenth of a second, 20th of a second, or a fifth of a second, whatever. You wait that, and each time you get a change, you just go ahead and restart that timer effectively, or push the time out. And then once that time arrives, then you do the thing. And it'd be even better if I spelled recalculation correctly. Okay. Okay, so I have that note right there. And then the other thing we need is when this anthem gets down below 20 seconds, we don't have any logic that tells us to go recalculate. So we do need that update cycle present, but most of the time, nothing is changing. We need, when we first launched an anthem, or maybe each time we do this calculation, we just need to know the next thing to expire, or not even expire, the next thing to get down to that threshold of 25 seconds. Here, we are too low, and so we needed something about that. So in the great logic dump that we have here, as we are going through these anthem priorities, and as we check the trained ones, as we check this remaining time, the least remaining time left, when that minus the cooldown seconds, in that many seconds, we need to come back and look, assuming we haven't since already. And so for that, we need the shortest remaining time. So local shortest remaining time equals, well, it's going to start with a 0, I guess. Is it? No, it should start large. We need it to get small. So it's going to start at the anthem cooldown seconds. And then if remaining time is less than shortest remaining time, then go ahead and update shortest remaining time equals remaining time. Okay, now we have a shortest remaining time. And so what we need to do is, in that seconds minus anthem cooldown, so if shortest remaining time minus self.anthem cooldowns is that right? All right, if I don't actually care about the remaining time of everything. Actually, do I? I care about if it's not expired. Thanks. I need to think through that logic, and I don't know if I have enough time for it tonight. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and to do need logic to track the how long until the shortest remaining time is below the anthem cooldown threshold. We should call recalculate anthem priority at that time. If it hasn't been called by then. Okay. So that's kind of where we're at. And then with that, I think we'll have closed the loop. Whenever we add or remove an anthem effect, we'll go ahead and trigger this as do this in, I don't know, 100 milliseconds. And then this recalculate anthem priority trigger will be however many seconds from now, trigger it. And so we need a function that's basically trigger this in n milliseconds and n seconds, fractional seconds. And then if that function gets called, it just overwrites the call, or takes the lesser of the two, I guess, between now and this one, which one is shorter, and we'll do it then. And then that will allow us to defeat both of those things, multiple triggers happening one after the other, where we're doing redundant work, and also this case where we just didn't do anything, and after a while an anthem became the priority again. Awesome. Well, we are definitely coming up on the end of a time period here. So as I tidy this up, if you have any remaining thoughts, questions, or concerns, let's toss them into chat there. And otherwise, we'll look at them next week. All right. Let me glance back and forth here. I guess for my purposes, I want this to work during the week. So I think my update function is going to get called repeatedly. Just without that right line at the beginning. Whoopsie. Yes. I had incompleted thoughts down here. All right, I'm super excited, though, that what we have implemented here is an anthem priority queue where you can specify which anthem is most important to you, or really which anthem effect is most important to you. And we have a UI that will present to you the next anthem in that list based on which ones you have trained, which ones are already active, and how long they have, how long they have left. Oops, need another ballad. So we can see that right now, Anthem of Composure is next up in the priority queue, but we can also see that the Anthem 2 combined effect is cooling down, and in 15 seconds should take the priority, because if we didn't do that as the priority, if we did Composure, this combined effect would expire before we get a chance to come back and do it. And that's exactly what we see. Oh, that is so pleasing. Okay. Well, I think I'll get myself out of combat here. Thanks, training dummy. Neat. All right. Well, it is the last Tuesday of the month. That means Shoreless Skies is going to do another Beneath Your Feet at 9 p.m. Eastern Time tonight. Last I heard, I believe they are visiting the Shire. Either way, don't forget to tune in. 9 p.m. Eastern Time, Shoreless Skies is Beneath Your Feet. That is all we're going to cover today. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of LOTRO plugins. I do hope to see you here next week. And until then, keep plugging along. All right, bye-bye now.